At exactly 11:47 p.m. on a cold February night in Dallas, Noah Carter, a single father working as a janitor for $14 an hour, did something that would shatter his life and save another's. He stepped between a billionaire's fist and a pregnant woman's face while 100 of America's wealthiest citizens watched in silence. Within 72 hours, his name would be spoken in every household in America. His face would be plastered across every news channel, and powerful men in dark suits would want him destroyed. This is the true story of how one invisible man became impossible to ignore, and why courage, when it matters most, often comes from the most unexpected places. Before we begin, I want to invite you on this journey with me. If this story moves you, stay until the very end, because what happens in part 5 will restore your faith in humanity. And please, comment below with the city or country you're watching from. I want to see how far Noah's story travels across this world.
Now, let's go back to where it all began, to that glittering night when everything changed.
The Indigo House stood like a crystal fortress against the Dallas skyline, its 43 floors of glass and steel reflecting the city lights like a monument to wealth and power. On the 42nd floor, the grand ballroom had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale, or perhaps a fantasy, depending on how you looked at it. Crystal chandeliers the size of compact cars hung from the vaulted ceiling, each one containing exactly 1,047 individual crystals, according to the event coordinator who had reminded the staff at least a dozen times not to bump into them with cleaning equipment. The marble floors, imported from Carrara, Italy, at a cost of $847 per square foot, gleamed like mirrors reflecting the designer gowns and tailored tuxedos of Dallas's elite. This was the annual Indigo House Gala, the charity event of the season. Tickets started at $5,000 per plate. The champagne being poured by white-gloved waiters cost $800 per bottle. The ice sculptures slowly melting on the buffet tables had been carved by an artist flown in from Switzerland. And the cause? Domestic violence awareness. The irony would become apparent soon enough. Noah Carter had been mopping these floors for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Not that he was counting. Well, maybe he was counting. When you worked the night shift as a janitor at one of Dallas's most exclusive venues, you counted a lot of things. Steps taken, floors mopped, hours until you could go home to your son, dollars earned, dollars needed. The gap between the two that never seemed to close no matter how hard you worked. At 34 years old, Noah looked older than his years. Grief and exhaustion had etched fine lines around his eyes, and his shoulders carried a permanent tension that came from being both mother and father to a 7-year-old boy. His hands, calloused and rough, told the story of a man who had worked hard his entire life. Construction in his 20s, factory work after that, and now this, the third job he'd held since his wife Sarah had died 2 years ago. Tonight, he wore the same thing he wore every shift: dark gray work pants, a navy blue polo shirt with Indigo House Maintenance embroidered over the pocket, and steel-toed boots that had seen better days. His ID badge, with a photo that somehow made him look both exhausted and vaguely criminal, hung from a lanyard around his neck. He was invisible. That's what Noah had learned in 3 years of working these events. To the people who attended galas like this, service staff weren't quite real. They were part of the scenery, like the ice sculptures or the potted orchids positioned throughout the room. You could walk past them, around them, sometimes even through them, and never quite see them as human beings with lives and problems and dreams of their own. Noah had made peace with his invisibility. In fact, he preferred it. Being invisible meant being left alone, and being left alone meant he could do his job, collect his paycheck, and get home to Caleb before the sitter charged overtime. Mrs. Chen from 4B was kind, but she charged an extra $5 for every 15 minutes past midnight, and that $5 might as well have been $500 with how tight his budget ran. "Excuse me," a woman in a silver gown brushed past him, her elbow catching his shoulder hard enough to slosh the contents of his mop bucket. She didn't apologize, didn't even glance back. Noah steadied the bucket and continued mopping, working his way along the perimeter of the ballroom where the marble met the carpet. He had a system, a pattern he followed at every event. Start at the service entrance, work counterclockwise around the room, stay in the shadows, avoid the guests, finish the job, go home. Simple, efficient, invisible. On the stage at the far end of the ballroom, a woman in a red dress stood at a podium, her voice amplified by speakers positioned throughout the space. Noah couldn't make out all the words. The acoustics were strange when you were down at floor level, and the chatter of 300 guests overpowered the speech. But he caught fragments. Grateful to our sponsors, making a difference in the lives of women. Courage to speak out. The woman speaking was Evelyn Hawthorne, and if Noah had been paying attention to the guest list or the event program, he would have known she was the wife of Grant Hawthorne, CEO of Hawthorne Industries, the third largest private equity firm in Texas. But Noah didn't pay attention to things like that. Guest lists and programs were for people who belonged at events like this, and Noah knew exactly where he belonged. In the background, mop in hand, invisible. Still, even from across the room, even without trying to notice, Noah couldn't help but see that Evelyn Hawthorne was beautiful. Not in the polished, calculated way of many of the women here, with their obvious cosmetic enhancements and designer everything. Evelyn's beauty was softer, more natural. Her dark hair fell in loose waves past her shoulders. Her red dress was elegant but not ostentatious, and when she smiled, addressing the crowd, there was something warm in it, something genuine. She was also visibly pregnant, perhaps 5 or 6 months along, the swell of her belly obvious even in the carefully tailored dress. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Evelyn said, her voice clearer now as Noah worked closer to the stage. Domestic violence remains one of the most underreported crimes in America. 1 in 4 women will experience it in their lifetime. Tonight, your generosity will help fund shelters, legal assistance, and support services for survivors trying to rebuild their lives. You are literally saving lives. Thank you. The applause was enthusiastic, the kind of applause wealthy people gave when they felt good about themselves. Noah had heard it dozens of times at dozens of events. He kept mopping. "And now," Evelyn continued, "I'd like to invite my husband, Grant Hawthorne, to say a few words about Hawthorne Industries' commitment to this cause." More applause as a man joined Evelyn on stage. Grant Hawthorne was exactly what you'd expect a Texas billionaire to look like. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver-flecked hair styled perfectly, and a tan that suggested either regular vacations or a very good spray booth. His tuxedo probably cost more than Noah made in 6 months. His smile was wide and white and didn't quite reach his eyes. He kissed Evelyn on the cheek, a performance of affection for the crowd, and took the microphone. "Thank you, darling," Grant said, his voice booming with practiced charm. "Ladies and gentlemen, I won't bore you with a long speech. You came here to eat excellent food, drink excellent wine, and feel excellent about yourselves." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Grant was good at this, at reading a room and giving people what they wanted. But I will say this: Hawthorne Industries believes in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We believe in standing up for the vulnerable. We believe that no woman should live in fear in her own home. And we're proud to be the platinum sponsor of tonight's event. More applause. Grant handed the microphone back to Evelyn, whispered something in her ear that made her stiffen slightly, a movement so subtle Noah almost missed it, and then descended the stage stairs. Noah was close enough now that he could see Grant's face as he left the stage. The warm smile vanished the moment he turned away from the crowd, replaced by something harder, colder. He grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter's tray, grabbed it roughly, carelessly, causing the waiter to stumble slightly, and drained half of it in one swallow. "This whole thing is ridiculous," Grant muttered to a man who appeared at his elbow. The other man was shorter, rounder, with the look of an attorney or a financial advisor, someone whose job was to hover near powerful men and agree with everything they said. "Yes, sir, but the optics are important," the other man said quietly, "especially with the merger talks heating up. Corporate social responsibility plays well with, I don't give a damn about optics, Richard. I give a damn about the fact that my wife just made me stand up there and play the caring husband in front of 300 people when I should be in Houston closing the Brennan deal." Noah moved past them, mop swishing across the marble. Invisible. "Your wife is very dedicated to this cause," Richard said carefully. "The foundation work, the speeches, it's all very admirable." "My wife," Grant said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper that somehow carried farther than his normal tone. Needs to remember her place. She's not a social activist. She's Mrs. Grant Hawthorne. There's a difference. Noah kept moving, kept mopping, tried not to listen. But something about Grant's tone, the casual cruelty in it, the sense of ownership, made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. On stage, Evelyn was introducing the evening's program. Dinner, a silent auction, and then dancing. Her voice was steady, professional, but Noah noticed, because he was looking now, because something had shifted in his awareness, that her hands trembled slightly as they gripped the sides of the podium. The next hour passed in the usual blur of activity. Guests moved from cocktails to dinner. Waitstaff circulated with bottles of wine that cost more per glass than Noah made in a day. The noise level rose as alcohol flowed and inhibitions lowered. Noah and the other maintenance staff, there were 4 of them working tonight, retreated to the service areas, ready to respond to spills or other emergencies, but otherwise staying out of sight. Noah used the break to check his phone. One text from Mrs. Chen. Caleb ate all his dinner and finished homework. In bed now. All good. He smiled. Caleb was the reason for everything. The reason Noah got up at 5 a.m. to work a construction site across town before coming here. The reason he worked double shifts on weekends. The reason he kept going when exhaustion made his bones ache and his vision blur. Caleb, with Sarah's eyes and Noah's stubborn chin. Caleb, who drew pictures of superheroes and insisted his dad was the strongest man in the world. Caleb, who still cried sometimes at night for his mother, and who Noah would die to protect. There was a drawing on their refrigerator at home, stick figures in crayon. A tall figure labeled Dad with a cape, and a smaller figure labeled Me. At the top, in Caleb's careful 7-year-old handwriting, Dad is my hero. Noah stared at that text from Mrs. Chen, thought about that drawing, and felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle over his shoulders like a physical thing. He had to be enough, father and mother both. He had to work enough, earn enough, do enough, be enough. He had to be the hero his son believed he was. Hey, Carter. Marcus, the shift supervisor, stuck his head into the service area. Need you back out there. Someone knocked over a champagne tower near the stage. It's everywhere. Noah pocketed his phone and grabbed his mop. Back to work. Back to being invisible. The champagne spill was impressive. A cascading fountain of glasses had toppled, sending amber liquid spreading across the marble in a sparkling pool. Noah worked quickly, efficiently, aware that guests were watching with the detached amusement of people watching something that didn't affect them personally. Careful there, a woman in diamonds said, as Noah mopped near her shoes. These are Louboutins. Yes, ma'am, Noah said quietly, redirecting his mop. By the time he finished, the band had started playing. Couples drifted onto the dance floor. The lights dimmed slightly, making the space feel more intimate, more romantic. Noah worked his way back to the perimeter, into the shadows, where he belonged. That's when he saw them. Grant and Evelyn Hawthorne stood in an alcove near the bathrooms, partially hidden by a massive flower arrangement. To a casual observer, and everyone here was casual at best in their observation of others, they looked like a couple having a private conversation at a public event. Nothing unusual. But Noah wasn't a casual observer anymore. Something had shifted in him tonight, some instinct sharpened by years of watching out for Caleb, of being alert to danger, of reading unspoken threats. Grant had Evelyn's arm in his grip, not holding it, gripping it. His fingers dug into the soft flesh of her upper arm, hard enough that Noah could see the pressure even from 20 feet away. Evelyn's face was turned down, but Noah could see her expression in profile. Fear, barely masked. Embarrassing me, Grant was saying, his voice low and vicious. Parading around up there like some kind of saint when you know damn well— Grant, please, not here, Evelyn whispered. People might see— Let them see. Let them see what a disobedient wife looks like. Do you have any idea how much money I've poured into this ridiculous foundation of yours? And you still can't follow simple instructions. I told you to keep the speech under 3 minutes. I told you not to mention the shelter expansion. It's important work. I decide what's important. Grant's voice rose slightly before he caught himself, glancing around to make sure no one was paying attention. No one was, except Noah.
You're hurting me, Evelyn said softly, trying to pull her arm free. Grant's grip tightened. Good. Maybe it'll help you remember who you belong to. Noah's hands tightened on the mop handle. His heart hammered in his chest. This wasn't his business. These weren't his people. He was a janitor, invisible, meant to observe but never intervene in the private affairs of the wealthy. But he kept thinking about that speech Evelyn had given, about domestic violence, about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, about courage. He thought about Sarah, about the last time he'd held her hand in the hospital, about the promise he'd made that he'd teach their son to be a good man, a brave man, the kind of man who stood up when it mattered. He thought about that drawing on the refrigerator. Dad is my hero. Grant released Evelyn's arm with a push that made her stumble backwards slightly. She caught herself against the wall, one hand instinctively going to her pregnant belly, protective. You have 10 minutes to fix your face and get back out there, Grant said coldly. Smile, play the happy wife, and stop making me look bad. Can you manage that, or is it too complicated for you? Yes, Evelyn whispered. Yes, I can do that. Good girl, Grant said, the condescension in his voice making Noah's stomach turn. Grant turned to walk away, back toward the main ballroom, back toward the party where he would smile and shake hands and play the role of philanthropic billionaire. He took 3 steps. Then he stopped, turned back to Evelyn, and in one fluid motion, like he'd done it 1,000 times before, like it was the most natural thing in the world, he slapped her across the face. The sound echoed in the alcove like a gunshot. Evelyn's head snapped to the side. Her hand flew to her cheek. A small, choked sound escaped her throat. Time seemed to stop. Noah stood frozen, 20 feet away, mop in hand, mind racing. This wasn't his business. He was invisible. He was nobody. If he got involved, he'd lose his job. He'd lose the income Caleb depended on. He'd paint a target on his back, and men like Grant Hawthorne had ways of destroying people like Noah Carter. All of this flashed through his mind in less than a second. But louder than all of it, louder than fear or reason or self-preservation, was another voice. Sarah's voice, from 2 years ago when the cancer was winning and they both knew it, when she'd gripped his hand and made him promise, teach Caleb to be brave. Teach him that doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing. And Caleb's voice from just yesterday morning, when Noah had broken up a fight between Caleb and another boy at the bus stop. Dad, why didn't you let me hit him back? He was being mean. And Noah's response, because we don't hit people, buddy, even when we're angry, even when they deserve it. We're bigger than that. Grant raised his hand again. Noah moved. He didn't think about it, didn't plan it. His body acted before his brain could catch up, propelled by something deeper than thought, instinct, morality, the accumulated weight of every moment he'd tried to be the man his son believed he was. Sir, Noah said, his voice somehow steady despite the terror flooding his system. Sir, please stop. Grant froze, his hand still raised. Evelyn's eyes, wide with shock and fear, locked onto Noah's face. For a moment, the 3 of them stood in a frozen tableau. The billionaire, the pregnant woman, the janitor. Then Grant turned, slowly, deliberately, to face Noah. His expression went through several transformations in quick succession, surprise, confusion, and then something darker, contempt. Excuse me? Grant said softly, dangerously. Noah's mouth was dry. His heart hammered against his ribs like it was trying to escape. Every survival instinct he possessed screamed at him to back away, apologize, retreat into invisibility. But he thought about Evelyn's hand protectively cradling her pregnant belly. He thought about the red mark blooming on her cheek. He thought about what kind of man hits a pregnant woman. He thought about what kind of man does nothing while watching it happen. Sir, Noah said again, his voice quieter now, but no less firm. She's pregnant. Please, just stop. Grant stared at him for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he laughed. It was a cold sound, utterly devoid of humor. Do you have any idea who I am? Grant asked. Yes, sir. Do you have any idea who you are? Noah glanced down at his uniform, his work boots, his calloused hands gripping the mop. Yes, sir. Then explain to me, Grant said, taking a step toward Noah. Why a janitor, a nobody, a man whose entire yearly salary I spend on watches,
Thinks he has any right to speak to me about anything, let alone about my wife. Because it's wrong, Noah said simply. The word hung in the air between them. Wrong. Such a simple word, such a complete and total condemnation. Grant's face flushed red. You don't get to decide what's wrong, you sanctimonious piece of— Grant, please, Evelyn said softly from behind him. Let's just go. It's fine, I'm fine. But Grant wasn't listening to her anymore. His full attention was focused on Noah, and Noah recognized the look in his eyes. He'd seen it before, in bars, in parking lots, in the faces of men looking for a fight. This was about more than the intervention now. This was about power, about dominance, about a wealthy man being challenged by someone he considered beneath him. Do you think anyone will believe you? Grant said, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt more threatening than a shout. A janitor with a dead wife and a kid he can barely feed? Do you think your word means anything against mine? The mention of Sarah, of Caleb, made Noah's hands clench on the mop handle, but he forced his voice to stay level. This isn't about me, sir. It's about her. Her? Grant glanced back at Evelyn dismissively. She's my wife, my property, my business, not yours. She's a person, Noah said, and you hit her. Prove it, Grant said, smiling now, confident. Go ahead, tell someone. File a report. See what happens. See how fast you're not just fired, but blacklisted from every job in this city. See how fast Child Services starts sniffing around, wondering if a single father working 3 jobs can really take care of his son properly. The threat was clear, calculated, and devastatingly effective. Grant had done this before, Noah realized. Not just the hitting, the covering up, the threatening, the silencing. Noah's hand moved to his pocket. What are you doing? Grant demanded. Noah pulled out his phone. His hand was shaking so badly he almost dropped it, but he managed to hold it up, camera facing Grant. Maybe you're right, Noah said, his voice barely above a whisper. Maybe no one will believe a janitor, but they might believe a video. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Grant's face. You didn't— I didn't, Noah admitted. But I will. If you touch her again, if you threaten her again, I will. And I'll send it everywhere. Every news station, every social media platform, everyone will see. It was a bluff. Noah hadn't recorded anything, but the threat of exposure, the possibility of witnesses, of evidence, that was sometimes enough. Grant stared at him, calculating. The silence stretched out for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then Grant smiled again, and it was the most chilling thing Noah had seen all night. You know what? Grant said conversationally. You're right. I shouldn't have hit my wife. That was wrong of me. He turned to Evelyn. Honey, I apologize. The stress of the merger, the drinks, that's no excuse. I'm sorry. Evelyn nodded mutely, her hand still pressed to her cheek. Grant turned back to Noah. And you, my friend, you're a brave man, standing up for what's right. I respect that. I really do. He extended his hand for a handshake. Noah didn't take it. Grant's smile widened. Smart. Don't trust me. That's wise. He lowered his hand and stepped closer to Noah, close enough that only Noah could hear his next words. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to take your little mop and your big hero complex, and you're going to disappear back into whatever hole you crawled out of. Because if you don't, if you breathe a word of this to anyone, if you so much as look at my wife again, I will destroy you. Not just your job, your life, your son's life. I will take everything from you and make you watch. Do we understand each other? Noah met his eyes. Yes, sir. I understand you perfectly. Grant studied him for another moment, then nodded. Good talk. He turned to Evelyn, offered her his arm like a gentleman. Come on, darling. Let's get back to the party. We have appearances to maintain. Evelyn took his arm because what choice did she have? As they walked past Noah, she glanced at him, just for a second, just one quick look, and mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Then they were gone, swallowed back into the glittering crowd of the ballroom, into the music and the laughter and the champagne, into the performance of a happy marriage. Noah stood alone in the alcove, mop in hand, phone in pocket, shaking from head to toe. What had he done? What had he just done? He'd confronted a billionaire. He'd made an enemy of one of the most powerful men in Texas. He'd painted a target on his back and possibly on Caleb's too. For what? For a woman he didn't know? For a principle? For the abstract concept of doing the right thing? Noah leaned against the wall, struggling to catch his breath, his mind racing through scenarios, through consequences, through every possible way this could destroy his life. But underneath the fear, underneath the panic, was something else, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. He'd stood up. When it mattered, when someone needed help, when everyone else looked away, he'd stood up. Sarah would have been proud. Caleb would be proud, if he ever knew, which he couldn't, which he wouldn't, because Noah was going to keep his head down, finish his shift, go home, and pretend this night never happened. He had to. He had a son to protect, bills to pay, a life that couldn't afford to be destroyed by the vindictiveness of a powerful man. That was the smart choice, the safe choice. The coward's choice? Noah pushed away from the wall and went back to mopping the floor. But as he worked, he couldn't stop seeing Evelyn's face, the fear in her eyes, the red mark on her cheek, her hand protectively cradling her pregnant belly. He couldn't stop hearing Grant's voice. She's my property, my business. And he couldn't stop thinking about that drawing on his refrigerator. Dad is my hero. By the time the gala ended at 1 a.m., Noah had mopped more floors, cleaned more spills, and collected more discarded champagne glasses than he could count. He'd also made a decision. Not a smart decision, not a safe decision, but the right one. When he got home at 1:47 a.m., after paying Mrs. Chen her fee plus the overtime, after checking on Caleb sleeping peacefully in his bed, after standing in the doorway of his son's room and watching him breathe for 5 full minutes, after all of that, Noah sat at his kitchen table and did something terrifying. He opened his phone and started recording. His hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries to hit the record button. When he finally did, when he saw his own face in the frame, exhausted, scared, but determined, he took a breath and began to speak. My name is Noah Carter. I'm a janitor at the Indigo House in Dallas, Texas. I'm a single father to a 7-year-old boy. And tonight, I watched a billionaire hit his pregnant wife at a charity gala for domestic violence awareness. I'm recording this because I need to tell someone. I need to do something. I don't know if anyone will care. I don't know if anyone will believe me. But I can't stay silent. I can't pretend I didn't see what I saw. So here it is. The truth, for whatever it's worth. He told the whole story. Every detail. Grant's name, Evelyn's name, the threats, the fear, all of it. When he finished, his phone's memory showed he'd recorded for 17 minutes. He stared at the video for a long time, his thumb hovering over the delete button. This was it. The point of no return. If he posted this, if he sent it anywhere, there would be consequences. Grant Hawthorne wasn't a man who made idle threats. But if he deleted it, if he stayed silent, then what had any of it meant? What kind of hero stayed silent while someone suffered? What kind of father taught his son to be brave while he himself chose fear? Noah thought about Evelyn's face, her whispered thank you, her hand protecting her unborn child. He thought about Caleb, asleep in the next room, believing his father was the strongest man in the world. He thought about Sarah, about promises made and kept. Noah uploaded the video to YouTube. Unlisted, not public, not yet. He needed to think, to plan, to figure out the smartest way to do this. But it was recorded. It was real. It existed. The truth existed. And sometimes Noah was beginning to understand that's where courage starts. Not with the act itself, but with the decision to act. Not with the victory, but with the choice to fight. He closed his laptop and went to bed, knowing sleep would be impossible, knowing tomorrow would bring consequences he couldn't predict. But for the first time in 2 years, since Sarah's death, since the world had collapsed and he had had to rebuild it piece by piece, Noah Carter felt like more than just a man surviving. He felt like a man who'd done something that mattered. He felt for just a moment like the hero his son believed he was. And in the morning, everything would change. Noah woke at 5:14 a.m. to the sound of his alarm, his body moving on autopilot before his mind fully registered consciousness. 3 hours of sleep. That was all he'd managed, and even those 3 hours had been fractured by dreams of Grant Hawthorne's face, of courtrooms, of Caleb crying while strangers took him away. He splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. The man looking back appeared hollowed out, eyes rimmed with red, jaw tight with tension. This was the face of someone who'd crossed a line and couldn't uncross it. The construction site job started at 6:30. Noah needed to be there by 6:15 to clock in, get his assignment, and start the physical labor that would occupy his body while his mind spun in circles. He moved through his morning routine mechanically. Coffee, 2 pieces of toast he barely tasted, checking that Caleb's backpack was ready for school. Caleb stumbled into the kitchen at 5:47, rubbing his eyes, his dinosaur pajamas rumpled from sleep. "You're up early, buddy," Noah said, forcing brightness into his voice. "It's not even 6 yet." "Heard you," Caleb mumbled, climbing into his chair at their small kitchen table. "You were walking around, couldn't sleep?" Noah's chest tightened. His son was 7 years old and already learning to read the signs of his father's stress, already attuned to the subtle shifts in mood and behavior that indicated something was wrong. "Just thinking about work stuff," Noah said, which wasn't a lie. "Nothing for you to worry about." Caleb studied him with those serious brown eyes. Sarah's eyes. Noah thought for the 1,000th time, and then nodded slowly. "Okay, can I have cereal?" "Of course you can." Noah poured Lucky Charms into a bowl, added milk, and set it in front of his son. He watched Caleb eat, memorizing the moment, the way Caleb picked out all the marshmallows first, the milk mustache on his upper lip, the concentrated expression he wore while doing even simple tasks. If everything went wrong, if Grant Hawthorne made good on his threats, how many more mornings like this would they have? "Dad?" Caleb's voice pulled him back. "You're staring." "Sorry, buddy, just thinking how lucky I am." Caleb grinned, showing the gap where he'd lost a tooth last week. "Lucky like Lucky Charms?" "Exactly like that." Noah dropped Caleb at Mrs. Chen's apartment at 6:03. She would walk him to the bus stop at 7:45, just like every weekday. She stood in her doorway wearing a floral bathrobe, her gray hair in curlers, and gave Noah a look that suggested she saw more than he wanted her to see. "You look terrible," she said bluntly. Mrs. Chen had never been one for polite fictions. "You sick?" "Just tired. Long shift last night." She didn't believe him, but she didn't push. "Caleb will be fine. You go. Do your work. Try not to fall off any buildings." The construction site was in North Dallas, a luxury condo development that would eventually house young professionals willing to pay $3,000 a month for 800 square feet and a view of a highway. Noah's job was simple: haul materials, mix concrete, do whatever the foreman needed. It paid $18 an hour, cash, no questions asked about whether he had other employment. He worked for 4 hours in a fog, his body going through the motions while his mind replayed the previous night on an endless loop. Grant's hand around Evelyn's arm. The sound of the slap. The cold calculation in Grant's eyes when he'd threatened Noah's son. "Carter!" The foreman, a barrel-chested man named Tommy Vasquez, shouted from across the site. "You planning to move those cinder blocks today or just stare at them?" Noah blinked, realizing he'd been standing motionless for who knew how long. "Sorry, boss. On it." He loaded cinder blocks onto a dolly and wheeled them to the 3rd floor, his muscles burning with the familiar ache of physical labor. This was good. This was what he needed, work that occupied his body and exhausted him too much to think. But during his lunch break, sitting in his truck with a packed sandwich and an apple, Noah pulled out his phone and checked the video he'd uploaded to YouTube. Still unlisted, still sitting there, waiting. 67 views, his stomach dropped. How? He'd set it to unlisted, which meant only people with the direct link could see it. So who had the link? Who had found it? Then he remembered. When you uploaded to YouTube, even as unlisted, the platform's algorithm could still suggest it to people with similar viewing habits. Or maybe he'd accidentally made it public for a few minutes while figuring out the settings. His hands had been shaking so badly last night. 67 people had watched him tell the truth about Grant Hawthorne. 67 witnesses to his decision. Noah's hands started trembling again. He should delete it. Right now, before it spread further, before someone who knew Grant saw it, before this turned into something he couldn't control. His thumb hovered over the delete button. Then his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Is this Noah Carter, the janitor from the Indigo House?" Noah stared at the screen. Wrong number? Spam? Or something worse? He typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "My name is Ethan Cole. I'm a chef at the Indigo House. I was working the gala last night. I saw what happened. And I think you're incredibly brave." Noah read the message 3 times, his heart hammering. Someone else had seen. Someone else knew. Another message appeared. "Can we talk? I have information you need to see." This could be a trap. Grant Hawthorne was wealthy enough to hire people to pretend to be allies while gathering evidence against Noah. It could be someone trying to find out what Noah knew, what he'd recorded, who else he'd told. Or it could be exactly what it claimed to be, another witness. Noah glanced at the time. His lunch break ended in 7 minutes. He needed to make a decision. "Where?" he typed. "Coffee shop on Elm Street. The Daily Grind. Can you meet at 6 tonight?" 6 p.m. would give Noah just enough time to finish his construction shift, pick up Caleb from Mrs. Chen's, make dinner, and get the sitter back for the evening before his night shift at the Indigo House started at 8. It would be tight, expensive, and exhausting. "I'll be there," Noah typed. He spent the rest of his shift in a state of heightened anxiety, nearly dropping a load of lumber and earning another shout from Tommy. When 5 o'clock finally came and the foreman released them, Noah drove straight to Mrs. Chen's, picked up Caleb, and took him home. "Can we watch a movie?" Caleb asked as they climbed the stairs to their 3rd-floor apartment. "Not tonight, buddy. I have to go out for a bit." Caleb's face fell. "Again? You were gone all last night." "I know. I'm sorry, but Mrs. Chen will be here, and it's just for a little while. Then tomorrow's Saturday. No work. We can do whatever you want." "Whatever I want?" "Within reason. And within budget." Caleb considered this. "Can we go to the park and get ice cream?" "Absolutely. That's a promise." Noah made Caleb a quick dinner of chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, not the healthiest meal, but it was fast and Caleb loved it. And then Mrs. Chen arrived, raising her eyebrows when she saw Noah already dressed to go out. "2 nights in a row?" she said. "This must be some important work thing." "It is. I'll be back by 8:30 latest. Then I have to leave again for my night shift." You're going to work yourself to death. You know that." "Yeah, well, bills don't pay themselves." The Daily Grind was a small coffee shop in a gentrifying neighborhood, the kind of place with exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, and a chalkboard menu listing drinks with names like Meditation Mocha and Zen Latte. Noah had never been here before, couldn't afford $6 coffee when the gas station sold it for $1.50. But he could understand why someone would pick it for a clandestine meeting. It was busy enough to provide cover, but quiet enough to have a private conversation. He spotted Ethan Cole immediately. The man had said he was a chef, and he looked the part. Late 20s, with the lean build of someone who spent long hours on their feet, a close-cropped beard, and a tattoo of a knife on his forearm. He sat in the back corner, a laptop open in front of him, and when he saw Noah enter, he raised a hand in greeting. Noah ordered a black coffee, $3.50, which still seemed absurd, and joined Ethan at the table. "Noah Carter?" Ethan said, extending his hand. "That's me." Noah shook it, studying the younger man's face for signs of deception or threat. He saw only nervous energy and something that looked like determination. "Thanks for coming. I know this is weird, meeting a stranger based on a text, but I saw your video, the one you posted on YouTube." Noah's stomach clenched. "How did you find it?" "I was searching for information about last night, about Grant Hawthorne. I put in keywords, Indigo House, Gala, Grant Hawthorne, and your video came up." Ethan leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Listen, I need you to know something. You weren't the only one who saw what happened. I saw it too. I was bringing out a tray of hors d'oeuvres, and I saw him grab her, saw him hit her, and I did nothing." The shame in Ethan's voice was palpable. "You couldn't have known," Noah started. "I could have done what you did. I could have said something, but I didn't. I told myself it wasn't my business, that I'd lose my job, that guys like Grant Hawthorne are untouchable. I walked away. And then I went home and I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her face. And then this morning, I found your video and I realized you did what I should have done. And now you're going to pay for it unless we do something. We, Noah said carefully. Ethan turned his laptop around. On the screen was a news article from 6 months ago. Hawthorne Industries announces major merger with Brennan Capital. Grant Hawthorne is in the middle of the biggest business deal of his career, Ethan said. He's trying to merge his company with Brennan Capital, which would make him one of the 10 wealthiest men in America. But mergers like this come with scrutiny. Public image matters. Corporate ethics matter. If there was proof that Grant Hawthorne is an abuser, if there was video evidence, it could kill the deal. Noah felt cold. What are you saying? I'm saying your video matters. It's not just about protecting Evelyn Hawthorne. It's about exposing who Grant really is. It's about making him face consequences for once in his privileged life. And getting me destroyed in the process, Noah said bitterly. He threatened me last night. Told me he'd take everything from me, my job, my son, everything. He threatened you because he's scared, Ethan countered. Men like Grant only threaten people when they're afraid, and he's afraid because you have power now. You have the truth. Noah shook his head. The truth doesn't matter when you're up against billions of dollars and an army of lawyers. Maybe. Or maybe it matters more than anything. Ethan pulled up another window on his laptop, a Twitter account with 47,000 followers. This is Harper Quinn. She's an investigative journalist. Used to work for the Dallas Times until she wrote an expose about police corruption and got fired for it. Now she's freelance, and she specializes in taking down powerful people who think they're above the law. I sent her your video this morning. You what? Noah's voice rose sharply, drawing glances from other patrons. He lowered it to a harsh whisper. You had no right. She wants to meet you. She thinks she can help. She thinks she can protect you. Nobody can protect me from Grant Hawthorne. Maybe not alone, Ethan admitted, but together? With evidence, with witnesses, with a journalist who knows how to work the system? Maybe we have a chance. Maybe Evelyn has a chance. Noah stared at the laptop screen, at Harper Quinn's profile picture. A woman in her mid-30s with sharp eyes and a sharper expression. Someone who looked like she'd seen the worst of humanity and decided to fight it anyway. I have a son, Noah said quietly. A 7-year-old boy who's already lost his mother. I can't risk losing him too. I can't risk him losing me. I understand that, but can you live with yourself if you do nothing? If Evelyn stays trapped in that marriage, if her baby grows up watching Grant abuse their mother, if the next time he hits her, he does more than leave a bruise, can you live with that? The question hung in the air between them. Noah thought about Caleb's drawing on the refrigerator. He thought about Sarah's last words to him. Teach him to be brave. He thought about Evelyn's whispered thank you. When does Harper Quinn want to meet? He asked. Relief flooded Ethan's face. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., her apartment. I'll text you the address. Noah checked his watch. 7:42. He had 18 minutes to get to the Indigo House for his night shift. I have to go. One more thing, Ethan said as Noah stood. Your video is still unlisted, but Harper thinks we should make it public. As soon as possible. Before Grant's people find out about it and pressure YouTube to take it down. Before he has time to craft a counter-narrative. We need to get ahead of this. And put a target on my back. The target's already there, Ethan said gently. Grant knows you saw. He knows you know. Whether you go public or stay quiet, he's going to come after you. So the question is, do you want to face him alone and silent, or with allies and the truth on your side? Noah didn't answer. He walked out of the coffee shop into the cooling evening air, his mind spinning. The drive to the Indigo House took 12 minutes. He parked in the employee lot, clocked in through the service entrance, and found Marcus, the shift supervisor, waiting for him with an expression Noah couldn't read. Carter, Marcus said. Need to talk to you. Now. Noah's blood turned to ice. This was it. Grant had called ahead. Noah was fired. Or worse. He followed Marcus to a small office near the loading dock. Marcus closed the door and gestured for Noah to sit. Noah remained standing. What's this about? Noah asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Marcus sighed and rubbed his face. Look, man, I like you. You're a good worker, reliable, never cause problems. So I want you to hear this from me first. There's been a complaint. About what? About you. Apparently you harassed a guest at last night's gala. Made accusations, got aggressive, interfered in a private conversation. The guest filed a formal complaint with building management. They're demanding you be terminated immediately. So it had begun. Grant hadn't wasted any time. That's not what happened, Noah said carefully. I witnessed something concerning and I intervened. That's all. What did you witness? Noah hesitated. If he told Marcus the truth, he'd be putting Marcus in an impossible position. Believe a janitor or believe a billionaire. There was no good outcome. I saw a man hurting his wife, Noah said finally. She was pregnant. I asked him to stop. Marcus's expression shifted, surprise, then something that might have been respect, then resignation. Damn it, Carter. Damn it. You couldn't have just walked away? No, Noah said simply. I couldn't. The guest in question is Grant Hawthorne. Do you know who he is? Yes? Then you know how much power he has, how much money. He's on the building's board of directors, Noah. He basically owns this place. If he wants you gone, you're gone. There's nothing I can do. I understand. Marcus studied him for a long moment. Did you really see him hit his wife? Yes. And she was pregnant? About 5 or 6 months, looked like. Marcus swore under his breath. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then showed Noah the screen. It was an email from building management, time-stamped 3:47 p.m. Effective immediately, Noah Carter is terminated for gross misconduct and harassment of a guest. Security is to escort him from the premises if he attempts to enter. No severance, no recommendation letter. This decision is final. Noah read the words, feeling strangely detached. He'd known this was coming. He'd made his choice last night, and this was the consequence. I'm supposed to have security escort you out, Marcus said, but I'm going to give you 10 minutes to clear out your locker on your own. Get your stuff and go. And Noah? Whatever you're planning to do about this, be careful. Men like Hawthorne play dirty. I know. Thanks, Marcus. Noah went to the employee locker room and cleaned out his locker. It didn't take long. A change of clothes, a phone charger, a picture of Caleb he kept taped inside the door. 3 years of work, reduced to a plastic bag of belongings. On his way out, he passed the employee break room. Several people he'd worked with for years sat at tables, eating snacks, scrolling through phones. When they saw him with his bag, conversation stopped. You're leaving? Asked Maria, one of the night cleaning crew. Got fired. For what? Noah considered lying or dodging the question. But what was the point? For standing up to Grant Hawthorne. Maria's eyes widened. The Grant Hawthorne? The billionaire? That's the one. What did you do? The right thing. He walked out before anyone could ask more questions. In the parking lot, sitting in his truck in the darkness, Noah let himself feel the full weight of what had just happened. He'd lost one of his 3 jobs. His income had just dropped by over $1,200 a month. He had rent due in 2 weeks, utility bills, Mrs. Chen's fees, groceries, Caleb's school expenses, car insurance, all of it suddenly, catastrophically more difficult to manage. And this was just the beginning. Grant had promised to destroy him, and Grant was a man who kept his promises. Noah's phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Harper can meet tonight instead of tomorrow, 9 p.m. Says it's urgent. Here's the address. Noah stared at the address. He should go home. He should hug his son, tuck him into bed, and figure out how to explain that Daddy lost his job. He should start looking for new work, start planning how to survive the financial disaster heading his way. But he thought about Evelyn Hawthorne, trapped in a marriage with a man who saw her as property. He thought about the baby she carried, who would be born into a household where violence was normal. He thought about all the people Grant had probably hurt over the years, all the times he'd gotten away with it because no one dared challenge him. And he thought about Caleb's drawing. Dad is my hero. Noah started the truck and drove toward Harper Quinn's address. The apartment was in East Dallas, in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. Harper's building was a 3-story walk-up with peeling paint and a broken intercom. Noah climbed to the 2nd floor and knocked on apartment 2D. The woman who answered the door looked like her profile picture, but harder, more worn down. Harper Quinn had the appearance of someone who'd fought too many battles and won too few of them. But her eyes were sharp and alert, and when she looked at Noah, he felt like she was cataloging everything about him in seconds. Noah Carter, she said. Yes, ma'am. Come in. Ethan's already here. The apartment was small and cluttered with papers, books, and journalism awards in frames that looked like they'd been shoved into corners rather than displayed. A desk in the corner held 3 computer monitors, all showing different web pages and documents. Ethan sat on a worn couch, laptop balanced on his knees. Harper gestured for Noah to sit and handed him a beer without asking if he wanted one. You look like you need this. I got fired tonight, Noah said, taking the beer but not opening it, about 2 hours ago for filing a false complaint against Grant Hawthorne. It's not a false complaint, Harper said. I know that, but that's the official story. And now I'm unemployed, with a son to support, and a man with unlimited resources who wants me destroyed. So forgive me if I'm not feeling optimistic about whatever plan you've cooked up. Harper smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just spotted prey. Good. Skepticism means you're thinking clearly. Ethan showed me your video. It's powerful, raw, honest, but it's not enough. Not enough for what? To take down Grant Hawthorne, to protect Evelyn, to make sure this matters. Harper sat down across from Noah, leaning forward. Here's what I know about Grant. He's been investigated 3 times for financial fraud and twice for domestic incidents involving previous girlfriends. Every time the investigations went nowhere. Witnesses recanted, evidence disappeared, and Grant walked away richer and more powerful than before. He's Teflon. So what's the point? Noah asked, feeling despair creeping in. If he always wins, why are we even trying? Because this time is different, Harper said. This time we have video testimony. We have multiple witnesses. And we have me. No offense, but you're a freelance journalist. What can you do against a billionaire's legal team? I'm a freelance journalist with nothing to lose, Harper corrected. I've already been fired from the best job I'll ever have. I've already been blacklisted by the major papers. I've already had my reputation destroyed, which means I can go places and ask questions that other journalists can't. I can take risks, and I have contacts, people who've been waiting for years to see someone take a shot at Grant Hawthorne. Ethan spoke up. Harper thinks if we can get Evelyn to go on record, if we can document the abuse properly, we can build a case that's too big for Grant to bury. Evelyn won't go on record, Noah said. She's terrified of him. Probably, Harper agreed. But that's where you come in. You've already established yourself as someone willing to help her, someone she might trust. You want me to convince her to testify? I want you to give her the option, and I want to document everything, every conversation, every piece of evidence, every moment. I want to build a story so airtight that even Grant's lawyers can't kill it. Noah finally opened the beer and took a long drink. You realize this could put her in more danger. If Grant finds out she's talking to us, if he thinks she's going to expose him, that's a risk, Harper admitted. But what's the alternative? She stays with him? He continues to abuse her? Their child grows up in that environment? At some point, staying silent becomes more dangerous than speaking up. Easy for you to say. It's not your life on the line. You're right, Harper said. It's yours. And Evelyn's, and her babies. And I'm asking you to risk everything because I believe it's worth it. Because I believe we can win. Because I'm tired of watching powerful men get away with hurting people. The 3 of them sat in silence for a moment. On one of Harper's monitors, Noah could see his own face from the video he'd recorded, tired, scared, but speaking truth. If we do this, Noah said slowly, if we really go after Grant Hawthorne, we need to be smart about it. We need a plan, and we need protection. Agreed, Harper said, which is why step 1 is making your video public, tonight, right now, before Grant has time to suppress it. Won't that just provoke him? He's already provoked. You think he's going to leave you alone if you stay quiet? You've already challenged him. You've already made yourself a threat. The only question is whether you face him with the public on your side or with nobody watching. Noah thought about this. She was right. Grant had already destroyed one of Noah's income streams. There was no going back to being invisible, no way to undo what he'd witnessed or what he'd said. Okay, Noah said. Make it public. Harper turned to her computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. Give me your YouTube login. Noah did. Within minutes, Harper had changed the video from unlisted to public, added tags, written a description, and shared it to multiple social media platforms. Now we wait, she said. If this goes viral, if enough people see it, Grant won't be able to make it disappear. The court of public opinion is the one place where billionaires don't always win. And if it doesn't go viral? Harper shrugged. Then we try something else. But I have a feeling about this one. People are tired of watching the wealthy abuse their power. They're ready for a story about someone fighting back. You might be surprised how many people are on your side. Noah left Harper's apartment at 10:37 p.m. with a promise to check in the next morning and a growing sense that his life had just changed in ways he couldn't predict or control. The video was public now. The truth was out there. For better or worse, there was no taking it back. When he got home, Mrs. Chen was waiting with a concerned expression. "Everything okay? You're later than you said." "Everything's fine, just took longer than expected." "Caleb's asleep. He asked for you twice. I told him you'd check on him when you got home." Noah paid Mrs. Chen, thanked her, and waited until she left before collapsing onto his couch. He pulled out his phone to check on the video. 347 views. He refreshed the page. 412 views. His heart started racing. He refreshed again. 603 views. It was happening. People were watching. People were sharing. The truth was spreading faster than he'd imagined possible. Noah checked the comments section, which Harper had enabled. His breath caught as he read, "This is so brave. Thank you for standing up. Grant Hawthorne needs to be held accountable. I believe you. Keep speaking truth. Single dad working 3 jobs and still finds the courage to help someone. You're a real hero." But there were other comments too. "This is fake. Nice try for attention. Why should we believe a janitor over a successful businessman? You're just trying to get money out of him. Pathetic." The negative comments stung, but they were drowned out by support. Hundreds of people, strangers from all over the country, were rallying behind him. Noah went to Caleb's room and stood in the doorway, watching his son sleep. Caleb's face was peaceful, innocent, unaware that his father had just set in motion events that could destroy their life or transform it. "I'm trying to be the man you think I am," Noah whispered to his sleeping son. "I hope that's enough." He was about to leave when Caleb stirred, his eyes opening slightly. "Dad?" he mumbled, still half asleep. "I'm here, buddy. Go back to sleep." "You okay?" The question almost broke Noah. His 7-year-old son, barely awake, was worried about him. "Yeah," Noah said, his voice thick. "I'm okay, and tomorrow we're going to the park, remember? You and me. Ice cream after." "Promise?" "Promise." Caleb smiled and closed his eyes, drifting back to sleep immediately. Noah went to his own room but didn't sleep. He lay in bed refreshing the video views, watching the numbers climb. 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. Watching his decision to speak truth spread across the internet like wildfire. Somewhere in the city, Grant Hawthorne was probably sleeping peacefully in a mansion, surrounded by luxury, believing he was untouchable. Somewhere else, Evelyn Hawthorne was probably lying awake, one hand on her pregnant belly, wondering if anyone really cared what happened to her. And here, in a cramped apartment in East Dallas, a janitor who'd lost one job and was about to lose more was discovering that sometimes the smallest voices, when amplified by truth and courage, could be heard over all the money and power in the world. By morning, Noah's video had 47,000 views, and Grant Hawthorne's perfect life was about to shatter. Noah woke to the sound of his phone vibrating so violently it fell off the nightstand and clattered onto the floor. For a moment, still caught in the fog of sleep, he thought it was his alarm. Then he remembered. It was Saturday. No construction work, no alarm set, just the promised day with Caleb at the park. He grabbed the phone and squinted at the screen. 6:23 a.m., 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and notifications from social media platforms he barely used kept flooding his lock screen faster than he could process them. His heart lurched into his throat. The video. Noah sat up, suddenly fully awake, and opened YouTube. The numbers made his vision swim. The video he'd recorded at his kitchen table just over 24 hours ago now had 847,000 views. 847,000 people had watched him, a nobody janitor from Dallas, tell the truth about a billionaire. The comments section had exploded into thousands of responses. Noah scrolled through them, his hands shaking. This is trending on Twitter. Hashtag Justice for Evelyn is everywhere. CNN just picked this up. You're about to be famous. Grant Hawthorne's PR team is working overtime trying to scrub this. Don't let them silence you. My sister was in an abusive marriage. Thank you for being brave enough to help someone. You're a true hero. But mixed in with the support were darker messages. You're a liar trying to destroy a good man for money. Hope you have a good lawyer because you're about to get sued into oblivion. I know where you live. You're going to regret this. That last one made Noah's blood run cold. He checked the username, anonymous, created yesterday. Probably nothing. Probably just an internet troll. But the threat felt real enough to make him get up and check that the front door was locked, that the windows were secure, that Caleb was still safe in his bed. His phone buzzed again. Harper Quinn calling. Hello? Noah answered, his voice rough with sleep and anxiety. Have you seen the numbers? Harper didn't bother with pleasantries. Her voice was electric with energy. Noah, you're viral. Like actually viral. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, it's everywhere. Local news stations have been calling me all morning asking if I can connect them with you. National outlets are interested. This is big. People are threatening me, Noah said, still staring at that anonymous message. Someone said they know where I live. Harper's tone shifted, became more serious. That's going to happen. When you challenge powerful people publicly, their supporters come out of the woodwork. Some of it's real. Most of it's just noise designed to scare you. But Noah, listen to me. This is working. The story's out there. Grant can't bury it now. Too many people are watching. What do I do? First, don't respond to any media requests without talking to me first. Second, document everything. Every threat, every call, every message. We might need it later. Third, stay off social media as much as you can. Don't read the comments. They'll drive you crazy. Too late for that. And Noah? Be prepared. Grant's going to respond. He has to. His reputation is being shredded in real time. He'll either issue a statement denying everything, or his lawyers will go on the attack. Either way, things are about to get much worse before they get better. After Harper hung up, Noah sat on the edge of his bed, trying to process what was happening. 24 hours ago, he'd been invisible. Now nearly 1 million people knew his name, his face, his story. The anonymity that had protected him his entire adult life was gone, burned away by the harsh light of viral fame. He heard movement from Caleb's room, the soft pad of small feet, the creak of a door opening. Dad? Caleb appeared in the doorway, still in his dinosaur pajamas, rubbing his eyes. Why are you awake so early? It's Saturday. Noah forced a smile, shoved his phone into his pocket, and tried to sound normal. Couldn't sleep. Excited about our park day, I guess. Caleb's face lit up. Can we go now? How about we have breakfast first? Pancakes? With chocolate chips? Is there any other kind? They made pancakes together, Caleb standing on a chair to help pour the batter onto the griddle, and for a brief moment, Noah could pretend everything was normal. This was just another Saturday morning with his son. Just another weekend stretching ahead with its small joys and simple routines. But his phone kept buzzing in his pocket, and he kept thinking about those numbers, 847,000 views and climbing, and what they meant. While Caleb ate his pancakes, drowning them in syrup, Noah checked his phone again. The video was now over 1 million views, and there was a new text from Ethan. Turn on channel 8, now. Noah grabbed the TV remote and switched to the local news. A blonde anchor with perfect hair and a serious expression was mid-sentence. Social media firestorm surrounding Dallas billionaire Grant Hawthorne. The video, posted by a former Indigo House employee, alleges that Hawthorne physically assaulted his pregnant wife at a charity gala Thursday night. The footage has been viewed more than 1 million times and has sparked widespread debate about domestic violence and accountability for the wealthy. Hawthorne Industries released a statement early this morning, which we'll read for you now. Noah's stomach dropped. Here it came. The anchor looked down at a paper in her hands. Grant Hawthorne categorically denies these baseless allegations. The individual making these claims was terminated for erratic behavior and harassment of guests. This appears to be a malicious attempt at extortion by a disgruntled former employee seeking financial gain. Mr. Hawthorne and his wife, Evelyn, are happily married and expecting their first child. They request privacy during this difficult time as they deal with these false accusations. The anchor continued. We reached out to Noah Carter, the man who posted the video, but have not received a response. Legal experts say Carter could face serious consequences, including defamation lawsuits, if his allegations prove false. We'll continue to follow this developing story throughout the day. Dad, who's that man they're talking about? Caleb asked through a mouthful of pancake. Noah switched off the TV. Nobody important, buddy. Finish your breakfast. But Caleb was staring at him now with those two perceptive eyes. They said the name Noah Carter. That's your name. Noah's mind raced. How much to tell him? How much could a 7-year-old understand? Yeah, that's my name. It's about some stuff that happened at work. Nothing for you to worry about. Are you in trouble? The question was so direct, so worried, that Noah set down his own fork and gave Caleb his full attention. No, buddy, I'm not in trouble. I helped someone who needed help, and now some people are upset about it. But I did the right thing. You understand? Caleb nodded slowly. Like when I stood up for Marcus at school, when those bigger kids were being mean. Exactly like that. Sometimes doing the right thing makes other people angry, but we do it anyway because that's what heroes do. Like in your video? Noah's heart stopped. What video? The one on your computer. I saw it last night when I got up to get water. You were talking to the camera. You said you're a janitor and a father, and you saw someone do something bad. Of course. Noah had left his laptop open on the kitchen table. Of course Caleb had seen it. Yeah, Noah said quietly, like that video. The people on TV said it's not true. But you don't lie, Dad. Ita, Dad. So they're wrong, right? They're wrong, Noah confirmed. I told the truth. That's all I did. Caleb considered this while finishing his pancakes. Then he said matter-of-factly, I think you're brave. Mom would think so too. The words hit Noah like a physical blow. He blinked hard against sudden tears. Thanks, buddy. That means everything. They went to the park as promised, and for a few hours Noah tried to forget about viral videos and billionaire threats and million-dollar lawsuits. He pushed Caleb on the swings, caught him at the bottom of the slide, helped him across the monkey bars. They got ice cream from a truck, chocolate for Caleb, vanilla for Noah, and sat on a bench watching other families enjoy their weekend. Normal. This was normal. This was what mattered. But Noah couldn't completely ignore the stares. A few people seemed to recognize him, whispering to each other and glancing his way. One woman approached with her phone out. Excuse me, are you Noah Carter? The man from the video? Noah's instinct was to deny it, to protect his privacy and Caleb's. But lying seemed wrong after everything he'd done. Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to say thank you. My daughter was in an abusive relationship for 3 years. She finally left him last month. When I showed her your video this morning, she cried. She said it made her feel less alone. So thank you for being brave enough to speak up. The woman walked away before Noah could respond. He sat there, ice cream melting in his hand, trying to process what had just happened. Dad? Caleb tugged his sleeve. Why did that lady thank you? Because sometimes when you help one person, it helps lots of people, Noah said, even people you don't know. They stayed at the park until early afternoon, until Caleb was tired and sun-worn and happy. On the drive home, Caleb fell asleep in the back seat, and Noah let himself feel the full weight of exhaustion that had been building since Thursday night. Back at the apartment, Noah carried Caleb inside and laid him on the couch with a blanket. Then he finally allowed himself to fully engage with what was happening online. The video now had 1.8 million views. The hashtag @JusticeForEvelyn was trending on Twitter. News articles were multiplying, local papers, national outlets, entertainment sites, everyone covering the story from different angles. Most troubling were the think pieces already emerging. Why we should believe Noah Carter. The problem with viral allegations. Grant Hawthorne and the culture of wealthy impunity. Everyone had an opinion about what had happened, about who was telling the truth, about what should happen next. Noah's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Noah Carter? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Yes? My name is Grace Patterson. I'm an attorney specializing in domestic violence cases. I've been watching your video spread, and I'd like to help. Pro bono. Noah's throat tightened. I can't afford. Pro bono means free, no charge. I'm offering my services because I believe you did something important, and I believe you're about to need legal representation. Grant Hawthorne's statement this morning mentioned extortion and defamation. Those are serious accusations. If he follows through with a lawsuit, you need someone in your corner who knows how to fight. Why would you help me for free? Grace's voice softened. Because 20 years ago, I was Evelyn Hawthorne. Different name, different man, same story. Someone helped me get out. I've spent my career trying to pay that forward. So when I saw your video, when I saw what you did, I knew I had to reach out. They talked for 30 minutes. Grace explained the legal landscape, the potential consequences, the importance of documentation. She asked for details about Thursday night, about his termination, about any communication he'd had with Grant or his representatives. By the end of the call, Noah felt simultaneously more informed and more terrified. One more thing, Grace said before hanging up. I have contacts at Presbyterian Hospital. That's where most of the wealthy families in Dallas go for private care. If Evelyn Hawthorne is pregnant, that's probably where she's receiving treatment. I might be able to find out if she's been treated for injuries recently. Is that legal? It's complicated, but if we can establish a pattern of abuse, if we can show this wasn't an isolated incident, it strengthens your credibility. And more importantly, it might give us leverage to help Evelyn get out. She hasn't reached out, Noah said. For all I know, she's standing by Grant's story. Maybe she's denying everything. Or maybe she's terrified and trapped and doesn't know who to trust, Grace countered. Let me do some digging. I'll call you tomorrow. After Grace hung up, Noah sat in his quiet apartment listening to Caleb breathe in his sleep. The enormity of what he'd started was becoming clearer. This wasn't just about one video or one moment of courage. This was about dismantling the protective walls around a powerful man. This was about forcing the world to see something it preferred to ignore. And it was dangerous. His phone buzzed again. Harper this time, her text urgent. Call me, now, important. Noah stepped into his bedroom and called her back. What is it? Evelyn Hawthorne is in the hospital, Harper said without preamble. Presbyterian, just like Grace thought. She was admitted this morning. What happened? That's the thing. The official story is she fell downstairs, but Noah, I have a source in the ER who says the injuries don't match a fall. Bruising patterns, defensive wounds on her arms. My source thinks someone hurt her. Noah felt sick. Grant. Probably. The video went viral last night. By this morning, millions of people were talking about Grant Hawthorne being an abuser. And then suddenly his pregnant wife is in the hospital with suspicious injuries. That's not a coincidence. We have to do something. We are doing something. Grace is working on getting access to medical records. I'm working my sources at the hospital, and Ethan is trying to make contact with Evelyn's personal assistant, who might be sympathetic. But Noah, you need to understand, this is going to get ugly. Grant is cornered now. Cornered animals are the most dangerous. Can we get to Evelyn? Can we talk to her? She's in a private room with security posted outside. Grant's security, not hospital security. My source says Grant's been there all day playing the concerned husband. Nobody's getting to her without going through him. Noah paced his small bedroom, frustration building. So we just wait? While she's trapped in a hospital room with the man who put her there? We wait and we build our case. Grace is talking to prosecutors, trying to get them interested. I'm working on an article for the outlets that will actually publish it. Ethan's gathering more testimony from other Indigo House staff who might have seen things. We're building something bigger than one video. We're building a movement. That's not enough. It's what we have. They ended the call, and Noah stood at his window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Evelyn Hawthorne lay in a hospital bed, injured and alone and surrounded by her abuser's security. Somewhere, Grant Hawthorne was crafting his next move, mobilizing his resources, preparing to crush everyone who dared challenge him. And here, in this modest apartment, a former janitor with no money and no power was supposed to be enough to stop him. The rest of Saturday passed in a blur of phone calls and messages. By evening, the video had 3 million views. By Sunday morning, 5 million. News vans appeared outside Noah's apartment building. Reporters knocked on his door. Mrs. Chen from 4B called to say there were people asking about him. Tell them nothing, Noah instructed. Please, don't talk to anyone. Of course not, Mrs. Chen said. But Noah, you should know, there are also men in suits, not reporters. They're asking different questions. About you, about Caleb, about your wife who passed. Private investigators. Had to be. Grant was building a file on Noah, looking for leverage, for dirt, for anything he could use to discredit him. Noah kept Caleb inside all day Sunday. They played board games, watched movies, and pretended the world outside didn't exist. But Caleb wasn't stupid. He could sense his father's tension, could hear the phone constantly buzzing, could feel that something big was happening. "Dad," Caleb said. Sunday night, while Noah was tucking him into bed, "Are we safe?" The question was so small, so scared, that Noah had to fight to keep his voice steady. "Yes, buddy, we're safe, I promise." "But those people outside, they're just reporters. They want to talk, that's all. Nobody's going to hurt us." "You promise?" Noah looked at his son's face, so trusting, so certain that his father could protect him from anything, and he made a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. "I promise." Monday morning brought the call Noah had been half expecting, half dreading. Tommy Vasquez from the construction site. "Carter, I'm sorry, man. I have to let you go." Noah closed his eyes. "Let me guess. Someone called about me. Company got an email, said you're involved in some kind of scandal, that you're a liability, that keeping you on could expose the company to legal trouble. Boss says I have to cut you loose. It's not personal." "It's fine, Tommy. I understand. For what it's worth, I think you did a stand-up thing. My sister was in a bad situation with her ex, took her years to get out. We need more guys like you willing to speak up." "Thanks. That means a lot. 2 jobs lost now, just 1 left, if they hadn't fired him from that one yet, too." Noah's financial situation was moving from difficult to catastrophic. He had maybe 6 weeks of savings before the rent and bills became impossible to manage. After that, what? Move in with relatives he barely spoke to? Homeless shelter? Let the state take Caleb while Noah figured out how to survive? The walls were closing in. Monday afternoon, Grace called with news. "I got the medical records. Not legally, and we can't use them in court, but they tell a story. Evelyn's been treated 3 times in the past 18 months for injuries consistent with physical abuse. Twice she claimed she fell. Once, she said she walked into a door. The attending physicians noted their suspicions in each case, but Evelyn refused to file reports. So there's a pattern. Clear as day. And Noah, there's something else. Evelyn requested a psychiatric consult 6 months ago, told the doctor she was experiencing anxiety and depression related to her marriage. The notes mentioned she felt trapped and unsafe but was afraid to leave because of financial dependence and reputation concerns. The doctor recommended counseling. There's no record Evelyn ever went. Can we get this to the police? The records were obtained through questionable means. They're not admissible, but they do establish that medical professionals had concerns. If we can get Evelyn to come forward voluntarily, these records corroborate her story. She's still in the hospital? Yes, under guard. But Noah, I found something interesting. Evelyn has a personal assistant named Maria Santos. I did some research on Ms. Santos. She's worked for Evelyn for 4 years, and her social media suggests she's extremely loyal. There are photos of the 2 of them, personal notes, birthday celebrations. They're not just employer and employee. They're friends. You think Maria might help us reach Evelyn? I think it's worth trying. I have Maria's contact information. The question is, who makes the approach? It can't be me. I'm a lawyer. She'll see it as a legal threat. It can't be Harper. She's press. Maria will assume we're exploiting Evelyn for a story. It has to be me, Noah said quietly. That's riskiest for you. If Grant finds out you tried to contact his wife, even indirectly, he could use it to support his harassment claims. I don't care. This isn't about me anymore. Grace was quiet for a moment. All right, I'll send you Maria's number. But Noah, be careful. Be respectful. Make it clear you're not trying to exploit Evelyn. You're just trying to help. Noah sat with Maria Santos's phone number on his screen for an hour before he found the courage to dial. The phone rang 4 times before a woman answered. Hello? Cautious, guarded. Miss Santos, my name is Noah Carter. I don't know if you know who I am. I know who you are. Her voice was cold.
You're the man who's destroying Mrs. Hawthorne's life.
The words hit Noah like a slap. I'm not trying to hurt her. I'm trying to help. By putting her face all over the news? By making her private business public? By painting her husband as a monster while she's lying in a hospital bed?
I saw him hit her, Noah said quietly. I saw him hurt her while she was pregnant, and I couldn't stay silent. Would you have? Maria didn't answer immediately. When she spoke again, her voice was softer but still wary. What do you want from me? I want to know if Mrs. Hawthorne is okay. I want to know if she needs help. And I want her to know that if she wants to speak, if she wants to tell her story, there are people who will listen, people who will believe her, people who will protect her. Mr. Hawthorne is her husband, the father of her child. Whatever problems they have are between them. Is that what you really believe? Noah asked. Or is that what you have to say because you're afraid? Silence. Long enough that Noah thought Maria had hung up, then almost too quiet to hear. She's been hurt for a long time. Years. I've seen things, heard things. But it's not my place to speak for her. I'm not asking you to speak for her. I'm asking you to give her a choice. Let her know there's a way out if she wants it. You don't understand what you're asking. Mr. Hawthorne has lawyers, security, investigators. He has power. If Mrs. Hawthorne tries to leave, if she speaks against him, he'll destroy her. He'll take her child. He'll make sure she has nothing.
Or maybe, Noah said gently, he's just made her believe that. Maybe the truth is he's more afraid of her than she is of him. Because if she speaks, if she tells what really happens behind closed doors, all his power doesn't matter. Maria sighed, a sound heavy with years of witnessing and staying silent. I'll tell her you called. I'll tell her people are willing to help. But Mr. Carter, you need to understand, she's not like you. She can't just post a video and walk away from her life. She has too much to lose. Staying might cost her more, Noah said. After Maria hung up, Noah sat in his quiet apartment and wondered if he'd just made things better or worse. Had he given Evelyn hope? Or had he increased her danger? Had he helped? Or had he pushed a terrified woman further into a corner? He didn't know. And the not knowing was almost worse than any certain outcome. Tuesday morning, Harper called with urgency in her voice. Turn on CNN, right now. Noah switched on the TV. The network was running a special segment, The Hawthorne Allegations, a deeper look. A serious-faced anchor was interviewing a legal expert, but what caught Noah's attention was the breaking news banner at the bottom of the screen. Exclusive, more witnesses come forward in Hawthorne case. The segment cut to an interview with a woman Noah didn't recognize. The banner identified her as Amanda Preston, former Hawthorne Industries employee. I worked in Grant Hawthorne's office for 2 years, Amanda was saying, her face partially obscured to protect her identity. I witnessed him throw things at assistants, scream at employees until they cried, threaten people's careers if they didn't do exactly what he wanted. He created a culture of fear. And yes, I saw how he treated his wife. She would come to the office sometimes, and he would belittle her in front of staff, mock her intelligence, tell her she was nothing without him. It was psychological abuse, clear as day. The anchor leaned forward. Did you ever see him physically harm her? No, but I saw the aftermath. She would come in with bruises she tried to hide, sunglasses indoors, long sleeves in summer. And once, I walked past his office and heard him shouting at her, heard something break. When she came out, she was shaking, and he was smiling. The segment continued with 2 more anonymous witnesses, both telling similar stories of Grant's temper, his cruelty, his need to control and dominate everyone around him. Noah's phone exploded with messages. Harper. This is huge. Multiple witnesses equals pattern of behavior. Ethan. People are believing you now. The tide is turning. Grace. These testimonies could be crucial if this goes to trial. But most importantly, there was a message from an unknown number. Mr. Carter, this is Maria Santos. Mrs. Hawthorne would like to speak with you. Today. I'll send you details. Come alone. Tell no one. Noah's hands shook as he read the message. This was it. The moment everything could change. The meeting was set for 2 p.m. at a parking garage downtown. Maria's instructions were specific. Park on the 4th level, northwest corner, wait in your vehicle. Noah followed them exactly, his heart hammering as he pulled into the designated spot. A dark SUV with tinted windows pulled up beside him. The back door opened. Maria Santos sat inside, her expression unreadable. "Get in," she said. Noah hesitated for only a second before climbing into the back seat. The SUV immediately pulled away, driven by someone Noah couldn't see. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Somewhere we can talk without being followed," Maria said. "Mr. Hawthorne has people watching Mrs. Hawthorne constantly. We had to be creative to arrange this." They drove for 20 minutes, winding through streets until Noah lost track of where they were. Finally, the SUV pulled into an underground parking structure beneath an office building. They parked in a far corner, dimly lit and isolated. "She's here," Maria said. "In the building. She's been released from the hospital, but she's afraid to go home. She's staying with a friend Mr. Hawthorne doesn't know about." "Why did she want to see me?" "Because you're the only person who saw what happened and spoke up. The only person who risked something to help her. She needs to know if she can trust you." Maria led Noah to an elevator, then to the 20th floor of the office building. They walked down a hallway to a corner office with frosted glass. Maria knocked twice, then opened the door. Evelyn Hawthorne sat in a chair by the window, her hands folded over her pregnant belly. She looked different than she had at the gala, smaller somehow, more fragile. She wore oversized clothes that hid her body. Her face was carefully made up, but Noah could see the fading bruise along her jawline that makeup couldn't quite cover. "Mrs. Hawthorne," Noah said quietly, "thank you for seeing me." She studied him for a long moment. "You're exactly what I expected. Ordinary, real. Everything Grant is not." "I'm sorry about everything that's happened," Noah began. "I never meant to—" "Don't apologize," Evelyn interrupted. "You did what hundreds of people at that gala should have done but didn't. You saw someone being hurt and you intervened. Do you know how rare that is? How precious?" She stood slowly, one hand on her belly, and walked closer to Noah. "I need to know something. Why did you help me? You didn't know me. You had everything to lose. Why?" Noah thought about how to answer, then decided on simple truth. "Because I have a son, and I'm trying to teach him to be a good man. How could I tell him to stand up for what's right if I didn't do it myself?" Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes. "I'm going to have a son too, or maybe a daughter, in 3 months. And every day I wonder what kind of parent I am if I bring a child into a home where their father thinks violence is acceptable. What kind of mother stays?" "A scared one," Noah said gently. "Fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." Evelyn wiped her eyes. "Grant says if I leave him, he'll make sure I never see my child. He says he'll prove I'm mentally unstable, that I'm a danger. He has lawyers, money, connections. He says no court will believe me over him." "He's lying," Noah said. "Or at least he might be wrong. I've been talking to people, lawyers, journalists, advocates. They believe you. They want to help. But Mrs. Hawthorne, they need you to speak. They need you to tell your story. If I speak, Grant will destroy me. If you don't speak, he'll destroy you slowly, piece by piece, until there's nothing left." Evelyn turned back to the window, looking out at the city. "When I met Grant, I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world. Rich, handsome, successful. He could have anyone, and he chose me. For the first year, he was perfect. Then he started getting angry over small things. Then the anger became insults. Then the insults became control. And then one day, he pushed me, just pushed me during an argument, and I told myself it was an accident, that he didn't mean it, that it would never happen again." Her voice was steady, almost detached, as if she were telling someone else's story. "But it did happen again. And again. And each time he had an explanation. I provoked him. I didn't understand the pressure he was under. I needed to be more supportive, more understanding, more perfect. And I believed him. For years I believed him." She turned back to Noah. "Then I got pregnant, and I thought, this will change things. He'll want to be better for our child, but it got worse. He said pregnancy made me ugly, made me useless. He said I was trapping him. And when I told him I wanted to leave, he held me against a wall and told me if I ever tried to take his child, he would kill me. And I believed that too." Did you tell anyone? Who would believe me? His wife, living in a mansion, wearing designer clothes, throwing charity galas? Poor little rich girl with the handsome billionaire husband? Everyone would think I was lying or crazy or just ungrateful. I believed you, Noah said. That chef, Ethan, he believed you. The journalist, Harper Quinn, she believed you. The lawyer who contacted me, she believed you. And now millions of people who saw my video believe you. You're not alone anymore, Mrs. Hawthorne. Evelyn reached into her purse and pulled out a small USB drive. She held it in her palm, staring at it like it was both a lifeline and a grenade. I've been recording him, she said quietly, for 6 months. Every argument, every threat, every time he hurt me. I hid my phone, pressed record, and documented everything.
It's all here, audio files, videos, everything. Noah's breath caught. That's evidence. That could get me killed, Evelyn finished. Grant can't know I have this. If he finds out, if he knows there's proof of what he's done, I don't know what he would do. She extended her hand, offering the USB drive to Noah. I'm giving this to you because I think you'll do the right thing with it. Not for money or fame, but because it's the truth. And someone needs to tell the truth. Noah took the drive with trembling hands. It was so small, barely larger than his thumb, but it felt heavy as a stone. What do you want me to do with it? He asked. Show the world who Grant Hawthorne really is, Evelyn said. Show them what happens behind the closed doors of a mansion. Show them that money and power don't give you the right to hurt people. And then, when it's all over, help me get my child and disappear. I promise, Noah said. And with those words, with that small USB drive pressed into his palm, the war against Grant Hawthorne shifted from defense to offense. The truth was no longer just one janitor's testimony. It was evidence, undeniable, documented, devastating evidence. And Grant Hawthorne's perfect, carefully constructed world was about to collapse. Noah held the USB drive in his palm the entire drive back to his apartment, feeling its weight like a live grenade. Maria had dropped him off at the parking garage where he'd left his truck, warning him one final time to be careful, to watch for anyone following him, to trust no one except the people he absolutely had to trust. Mrs. Hawthorne is risking everything by giving you this, Maria had said, her dark eyes intense. Don't let it be for nothing. Now, sitting in Dallas traffic at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, Noah kept checking his rearview mirror. Was that black sedan following him? Had it been behind him for the last 5 blocks? And that motorcycle weaving through traffic? Was the rider watching him? Paranoia, probably. But Grant Hawthorne had the resources to have Noah followed, and after what Evelyn had just given him, paranoia seemed like the only rational response. He pulled into a gas station, filled up his tank even though it was still half full, and watched the traffic pass. The black sedan drove by without slowing. The motorcycle was nowhere to be seen. Just regular people going about their regular lives, unaware that the man pumping gas at pump number 4 was carrying evidence that could bring down a billionaire. Back in his truck, Noah called Harper. She answered on the first ring. Tell me you have good news, she said. Because I've been dealing with Hawthorne's PR team all day, and they're threatening to sue me, you, Ethan, and basically everyone who's ever said Grant's name. I met with Evelyn Hawthorne. Silence. Then, you what? When? How? Her assistant arranged it. Harper. She gave me something. Evidence. 6 months of recordings. Audio, video, everything. It's all here. Jesus Christ. Harper's voice went from shocked to all business in a second. Where are you right now? Driving home. No, don't go home. Grant probably has people watching your apartment. Come to my place. Bring the evidence. We need to make copies immediately and get them somewhere safe. If something happens to you, if Grant's people get to you before we can, I have to pick up Caleb. School lets out in 40 minutes. Then pick up Caleb and bring him here. We'll figure it out. But Noah, do not go to your apartment. Do not go anywhere predictable. Change your routine. Assume you're being watched. Noah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. This was real now. This was actually happening. He was in the middle of something dangerous, something that could get him hurt or worse, and he dragged his 7-year-old son into it. Okay, he said. I'll get Caleb and come straight to you. He picked up Caleb from the bus stop 3 blocks from their apartment, the first time he'd done pickup himself in weeks.
Caleb climbed into the truck with his backpack and a drawing he'd made in art class. Dad, you're here. Where's Mrs. Chen? I wanted to pick you up myself today. How was school? Good. We learned about the solar system and I made this. Caleb held up the drawing, planets and stars in crayon, surprisingly detailed for a 7-year-old. That's Jupiter. It's the biggest planet, and that's Saturn with the rings. And it's beautiful, buddy. Really beautiful. Noah pulled away from the curb, checking his mirrors. Hey, how would you feel about going on an adventure today? What kind of adventure? The spontaneous kind. We're going to visit a friend of mine. Her name is Harper. She's a journalist. That means she writes stories about important things. And we might stay there for a little while. Maybe overnight. Caleb's face scrunched up in confusion. Why can't we go home? Noah had prepared for this question but still had no good answer. How do you tell a child that home might not be safe? That powerful people might be looking for his father? That the world was more dangerous than a 7-year-old should have to know? Remember how I told you I helped someone who needed help? Noah said carefully. Well, some people are upset about that, and I need to be smart about keeping us safe. So we're going to stay with Harper for a bit, just as a precaution. Are the bad people going to find us? The question, asked in such a small voice, nearly broke Noah's heart. No, buddy, I won't let anyone hurt you. That's a promise. They stopped at a Target where Noah bought a few changes of clothes for both of them, toiletries, and some coloring books to keep Caleb occupied. He paid cash, another precaution Harper had mentioned. Credit cards left digital trails. At Harper's apartment, she opened the door before Noah could knock, her face tense with urgency. But when she saw Caleb, her expression softened. You must be Caleb, she said, crouching down to his level. Your dad told me you're an artist. Did you bring any drawings? Caleb, shy with strangers, held up his solar system picture. Wow, that's incredible. Is that Jupiter? I love Jupiter. Harper glanced up at Noah. Come in, both of you. Harper's apartment looked even more chaotic than it had during Noah's first visit. Papers covered every surface, multiple laptops hummed with activity, and a printer in the corner was churning out documents. Ethan was there too, along with Grace Patterson, the attorney, and another man Noah didn't recognize. Noah, Caleb, this is Detective Marcus Wright, Grace said, gesturing to the stranger. He's with the Dallas PD, Family Violence Unit. He's here off the record. Detective Wright was in his 50s, with graying hair and the weary eyes of someone who'd seen too much human cruelty. He shook Noah's hand firmly. Mr. Carter, Ms. Patterson has filled me in on the situation. I want to be clear. I'm here as a concerned citizen, not in an official capacity. What you have could be crucial evidence in a criminal case, but we need to handle it properly. Chain of custody matters. Admissibility matters. Noah pulled the USB drive from his pocket and held it up. Everyone in the room seemed to lean forward simultaneously. Before we look at this, Grace said, I need everyone to understand the legal implications. This was given to Noah by Evelyn Hawthorne voluntarily. She recorded these files herself in her own home, documenting abuse she suffered. In Texas, you can record conversations you're a party to without the other person's consent. So the recordings themselves are legal. However, how we use them, how we distribute them, and what we do next, all of that has legal ramifications. Can I see it? Detective Wright asked. Noah handed him the drive. Wright pulled out a laptop, inserted the drive, and began scrolling through the files. His expression, already grave, became darker with each passing second. Jesus, he muttered. There's dozens of files here, audio, video. She documented everything. Can you play one? Harper asked. Just so we know what we're dealing with? Wright selected a file dated 3 months earlier and clicked play. The audio quality was muffled, clearly recorded from a hidden phone, but the voices were unmistakable. Grant's voice, cold and controlled. You think you can embarrass me like that? In front of my business partners? Evelyn's voice shaking. Grant, I just disagreed with you about the investment. I didn't mean... A sound like flesh hitting flesh. Evelyn crying out. Then Grant's voice again. When we're in public, you smile and nod and keep your mouth shut. You're not smart enough to have opinions about my business. You're nothing without me. Do you understand? Yes. So quiet, so broken. Say it. I'm nothing without you. Good. Now clean yourself up. We have dinner in an hour. The The recording ended. The room was silent except for Caleb, who was coloring in the corner, mercifully wearing headphones and watching something on Harper's iPad. Detective Wright's jaw was tight. That's assault, clear as day, and there's emotional abuse, coercion. This is prosecutable. Will the DA actually prosecute? Noah asked. He's Grant Hawthorne. He has lawyers who could tie this up for years. That's where public pressure comes in, Harper said. The DA is elected. If the public demands justice, if this becomes too big to ignore, they'll have no choice but to act. Grace leaned forward. We need to be strategic about this. If we release everything at once, Grant's lawyers will flood the zone with counter-narratives, alternative explanations, character assassinations. We need to build a case methodically. First, we get Evelyn somewhere safe. Then we present evidence to the DA with a clear narrative. Then, and only then, do we go public with the recordings. Evelyn wants to disappear, Noah said. She asked me to help her take her child and leave. That's complicated, Grace said. If she takes the child without legal custody arrangements, Grant could claim parental kidnapping. We need to do this the right way. Protective orders, emergency custody hearings, legal documentation. How long will that take? Days, if we move fast. Maybe a week. And in the meantime, she's vulnerable. Grant knows she left the hospital without going home. He knows she's somewhere. How long before he finds her? That's why we need to move now, Detective Wright said. Tonight. I can arrange protective custody for Mrs. Hawthorne. Unofficial, through contacts I have. We get her somewhere safe, we document everything, and then we build the case. Harper was already typing on her laptop. I'm working on the story. Once we have Evelyn secure, once we have the legal pieces in place, I'm publishing everything. And I mean everything. The recordings, the medical records, the witness testimonies. Grant Hawthorne won't be able to spin his way out of this. He'll sue, Noah said. Let him sue. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. And by the time his lawyers file papers, the story will be everywhere. You can't unring that bell. They worked through the evening, making copies of the USB drive, cataloging each file, building timelines and documentation. Grace made calls to judges she knew, laying groundwork for protective orders. Detective Wright reached out to contacts in victim services, arranging safe housing. Harper drafted her article, fact-checking every detail. And Noah sat with Caleb, helping him color planets and trying to pretend everything was normal. Around 9 p.m., Caleb finally fell asleep on Harper's couch, exhausted from the day's disruption. Noah covered him with a blanket and rejoined the adults in the kitchen. We have a problem, Grace said quietly. I just got a call from Maria Santos. Grant knows Evelyn gave you something. He doesn't know what, but he knows she met with you. And he's threatening Maria, saying she's an accomplice to extortion. How does he know? Noah demanded. He probably has people following Evelyn, or maybe someone at that office building recognized her. It doesn't matter how. What matters is he's escalating. Is Maria safe? For now. She's staying with family, but Noah, you need to understand. Grant's going to come after you hard. He's probably filing lawsuits as we speak. Defamation, harassment, maybe criminal charges if he can manufacture evidence. He's going to try to destroy you before we can use this evidence against him. So what do I do? Detective Wright spoke up. You let us handle it from here. You've done your part. You spoke up. You helped Mrs. Hawthorne. You preserved the evidence. Now you step back and let the professionals take over. I can't just hide while— Yes, you can, Grace interrupted firmly. Noah, you're a civilian. You have a son to think about. The best thing you can do now is stay safe and be available to testify when the time comes. Let us fight this fight. Noah wanted to argue, but he looked at Caleb sleeping on the couch and knew they were right. He'd started something, but he couldn't finish it alone. He had to trust these people. Harper, with her journalistic credentials, Grace with her legal expertise, Detective Wright with his law enforcement connections. He had to trust that the system, so often rigged in favor of the wealthy, might actually work this time. Around midnight, Detective Wright's phone rang. He stepped into the hallway to take the call, returning moments later with an expression Noah couldn't read. That was my contact at the DA's office. Grant Hawthorne's lawyers just filed a criminal complaint against Noah Carter, alleging stalking, harassment, and extortion. They're claiming Noah fabricated the abuse allegations to shake down Grant for money and that he coerced Mrs. Hawthorne into creating false evidence. There's a warrant out for your arrest, Noah. They're looking for you right now. The room went silent. Noah felt the floor tilt beneath him. That's ridiculous, Harper said. We have evidence. Evidence they'll claim is fabricated, Detective Wright said. And right now, in this moment, the law is on Grant's side. He filed first. He has lawyers arguing probable cause, and a judge issued a warrant. Noah, I'm sorry, but you need to turn yourself in. If I turn myself in, they'll lock me up. What happens to Caleb? I'll take him, Grace said immediately. I'm an officer of the court. I have emergency foster credentials from previous cases. I can keep him safe while we sort this out. No. Noah's voice was sharp. I'm not letting my son go into the system. I'm not... Noah? Grace's voice was gentle but firm. I'm not the system. I'm someone who wants to help. And right now, the best way to protect Caleb is to make sure you handle this legally. If you run, if you resist arrest, it makes you look guilty. It gives Grant ammunition. But if you turn yourself in, cooperate fully, and trust us to present the truth, we have a chance. Noah looked at his sleeping son, 7 years old, motherless, and now watching his father get arrested on false charges filed by a billionaire with unlimited resources. He'll be terrified, Noah said, his voice breaking. I'll take care of him, Grace promised. I'll explain everything in terms he can understand. I'll make sure he knows you're not a criminal, that you're a hero, and I'll bring him to see you as soon as they allow it. Detective Wright stepped forward. I'll drive you to the station myself. I'll make sure you're processed fairly. And I'll personally deliver the USB drive and all our documentation to the DA first thing tomorrow morning. Noah, I know this seems like you're losing, but you're not. This is Grant panicking. This is him making mistakes. And mistakes are how we catch bad guys. Noah spent the next hour holding his sleeping son, memorizing the weight of him, the sound of his breathing, the way his hair stuck up in the back no matter how much Noah tried to smooth it down. He thought about Sarah, about how she would handle this, about whether she'd be proud or furious that he'd put their son in this position. Finally, at 1:30 a.m., Noah gently woke Caleb. Hey, buddy, I need to talk to you about something. Caleb blinked up at him, confused by the late hour and unfamiliar surroundings. Dad, what's happening? Remember how I told you I helped someone who needed help? Well, the person I was helping, her husband is very powerful and very angry, and he's telling lies about me to the police, so I have to go talk to them and explain the truth. Are they going to arrest you? Noah's throat tightened. His son was too smart, too perceptive. Yeah, buddy, they are. But it's temporary. It's just until we can prove I was telling the truth. How long? I don't know, maybe a few days, maybe longer. But Grace is going to take care of you. She's really nice, and she's going to make sure you're safe and comfortable, okay? Tears welled in Caleb's eyes. I want to stay with you. I know, I want that too, but I can't right now. And Caleb, I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that? Can you be brave like we talked about? Caleb nodded, tears streaming down his face. I'll be brave. But Dad, you have to promise you'll come back. Noah pulled his son into a fierce hug. I promise, I will always come back to you. Always. You're the most important thing in my life, and nothing, not Grant Hawthorne, not the police, not anything, will keep me from you. Do you understand? I understand. They held each other for a long moment. Then Noah stood, wiped his eyes, and turned to Detective Wright. Let's go. The drive to the police station was surreal. Noah sat in the back of Detective Wright's unmarked car, watching the city slide past at 2 a.m., and tried to process what was happening. Less than a week ago, he'd been invisible, just another working-class father trying to survive. Now he was about to be booked on criminal charges filed by one of the richest men in Texas. For what it's worth, Detective Wright said from the front seat, I've been a cop for 26 years. I've seen a lot of victims, a lot of abuse, a lot of powerful people getting away with things they shouldn't. What you did, standing up when everyone else looked away, that took guts, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure it wasn't for nothing. Thank you, Noah said quietly. At the station, Detective Wright walked Noah through processing personally. Fingerprints, mugshot, paperwork. The officers treated him with a mix of curiosity and respect. Word had apparently spread about who he was and why he was there. "You're that janitor from the video," one young officer said while taking Noah's fingerprints. "My girlfriend showed it to me. She said you're a hero." "I don't feel like a hero right now," Noah said. "Heroes never do," the officer replied. "That's how you know they're real." Noah was placed in a holding cell around 4 a.m. It was cleaner than he'd expected, but the metal bench was cold and the fluorescent lights were harsh. He sat with his back against the concrete wall and tried not to think about Caleb, about what his son was feeling right now, about whether Grace had managed to get him back to sleep. He must have dozed off, because the next thing he knew, someone was shaking his shoulder. He opened his eyes to find Detective Wright standing outside the cell with a paper coffee cup. "It's 7 a.m., Wright said. "Your arraignment is in 2 hours. Grace will be there. So will Harper, Ethan, and about 24 reporters. This is going to be a circus." "Great," Noah muttered. "There's something else. The DA reviewed the evidence we submitted last night, the USB drive, the medical records, witness testimonies. They're taking it seriously. They want to interview Evelyn Hawthorne before they proceed with charges against you." "Will she do it?" "Grace thinks so. She's been with Evelyn all night, explaining options, building trust. If Evelyn testifies, if she gives an official statement, the charges against you will be dropped. But Noah, she's scared. She needs to know people will protect her." "How do I convince her of that from a jail cell?" Wright smiled slightly. "Leave that to Grace. She's good at her job." The arraignment was exactly the circus Detective Wright had predicted. Noah was led into the courtroom in handcuffs, past a gallery packed with reporters, activists, and curious onlookers. Camera flashes went off despite the judge's prohibition. Someone shouted, "Justice for Noah!" and was quickly hushed by bailiffs. Grant Hawthorne sat in the front row with an army of lawyers in expensive suits. He looked calm, confident, a man who believed the system was on his side because it always had been. When Noah entered, Grant's eyes locked onto his, and Noah saw something cold and predatory in that gaze. This was a man who destroyed people for sport. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Patricia Morrison, called the courtroom to order with sharp raps of her gavel. "We're here for the arraignment of Noah Carter on charges of stalking, harassment, and attempted extortion. Mr. Carter, you have legal representation?" Grace stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Grace Patterson appearing on behalf of Mr. Carter. And Your Honor, we'd like to request a continuance. New evidence has come to light that directly contradicts the allegations made by the plaintiff." Grant's lead attorney, a silver-haired man named Douglas Kensington, stood immediately. "Your Honor, this is a transparent delay tactic. Mr. Carter is attempting to avoid accountability by manufacturing. I haven't heard the evidence yet, Mr. Kensington," Judge Morrison said coolly. "Ms. Patterson, what evidence?" "Your Honor, we have audio and video recordings made by Evelyn Hawthorne documenting years of physical and emotional abuse by her husband, Grant Hawthorne. These recordings directly corroborate Mr. Carter's original allegations and demonstrate that far from extorting Mr. Hawthorne, my client was acting as a good Samaritan trying to protect a pregnant woman from domestic violence." The courtroom erupted. Reporters began frantically typing on phones and laptops. Grant's face went pale, then red. Kensington was shouting objections about proper procedure and chain of evidence. Judge Morrison's gavel came down like thunder. "Order! I will have order in this courtroom, or I will clear it." The noise subsided to urgent whispers. "Ms. Patterson, these recordings, have they been submitted to the DA's office?" "Yes, Your Honor, last night, along with medical records, witness testimonies, and other corroborating evidence. We're prepared to present everything to the court." "Your Honor, this is outrageous," Kensington protested. "These alleged recordings could be fabricated, edited, taken out of context. Or they could be authentic evidence of criminal activity," Judge Morrison countered. "Mr. Kensington, I'm inclined to grant the continuance so the DA's office can properly review the evidence. This court doesn't exist to be weaponized by wealthy individuals against good Samaritans. Arraignment is continued for 48 hours. Mr. Carter, you'll remain in custody pending bail hearing this afternoon." "Your Honor," Grace said quickly. We request Mr. Carter be released on his own recognizance given the circumstances. Denied. Bail hearing at 3 p.m. We're adjourned. The gavel came down with finality. As Noah was led out of the courtroom, he caught a glimpse of Harper in the gallery. She gave him a thumbs up and mouthed, "It's working." Behind her, Ethan was already on his phone, probably updating his social media, following on every detail. And at the back of the courtroom, barely visible, Noah saw Maria Santos. She met his eyes briefly and nodded once. A message. Evelyn is safe. Evelyn is ready. The wheels of justice, so often agonizingly slow, were finally beginning to turn. Back in his holding cell, Noah was allowed a phone call. He called Grace's cell, and she put Caleb on the line. "Dad?" His son's voice was small, scared. "Hey, buddy. I'm okay. They're taking care of me. How are you doing?" "Miss Grace made me pancakes, but I want to come home. I want you to come home." "Soon," Noah promised. "Very soon. I have a hearing this afternoon, and if it goes well, I'll be out tonight. We'll be together again, okay?" "Okay." "Dad, the kids at school are saying you're on TV. They're saying you're famous." Noah closed his eyes. Of course the story had reached Caleb's school. Of course other kids were talking. "I'm not famous, buddy. I'm just your dad, and all I care about is getting home to you." "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, Caleb, so much. Be good for Miss Grace." The bail hearing at 3 p.m. was shorter and less dramatic than the arraignment. The DA's office had reviewed the evidence and, while not dropping charges immediately, recommended bail be set at a reasonable amount. Grant's lawyers argued for no bail, claiming Noah was a flight risk. Judge Morrison, clearly unimpressed with the whole proceeding, set bail at $10,000. "I don't have $10,000, Noah whispered to Grace. "You only need 10% for a bail bondsman," Grace whispered back, "and I'm covering it. Don't argue." "Grace, I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing to do it because it's right. Now stop being stubborn and let me help you." By 5 p.m., Noah was processed out of jail and standing on the courthouse steps with Grace, Harper, and Ethan. The late afternoon sun felt surreal after the fluorescent purgatory of the holding cell. Reporters swarmed immediately, shouting questions. "Mr. Carter, how do you feel about the charges? Will you file a countersuit against Grant Hawthorne? What's your message to other victims of domestic violence?" Harper stepped forward, positioning herself as spokesperson. "Mr. Carter will not be taking questions at this time. However, I will be publishing a comprehensive investigation into Grant Hawthorne's pattern of abuse, including audio and video evidence provided by Mrs. Evelyn Hawthorne herself. The article will be live at 8 p.m. tonight. Thank you." She grabbed Noah's arm and pulled him toward Grace's car before more questions could be shouted. In the car, driving toward Grace's house where Caleb was waiting, Noah finally allowed himself to feel something other than numb survival mode. Relief, terror, exhaustion, hope. They all crashed over him simultaneously. "Is Evelyn really ready to testify?" he asked. "She's giving her statement to the DA right now," Grace said. "With Maria beside her and Detective Wright recording everything. She's scared, but she's doing it." "What happens next?" "Next, Harper's article goes live and the court of public opinion makes it impossible for the DA to ignore this. Next, we file for emergency protective orders and custody arrangements. Next, we make it legally impossible for Grant Hawthorne to hurt Evelyn ever again. And Noah? Next, you go home to your son and try to remember what normal feels like." When they pulled up to Grace's house, Caleb was watching from the window. The moment Noah got out of the car, the front door flew open and Caleb ran out, launching himself into Noah's arms with such force they both almost fell over. "Dad, Dad, you're back! You came back!" Noah held his son and cried openly, not caring who saw. "I told you I would. I always will. Always." That night, at exactly 8 p.m., Harper Quinn's article went live. It was titled "The Man Behind the Money, Grant Hawthorne's Pattern of Abuse," and it was devastating in its detail. Audio clips from Evelyn's recordings were embedded throughout. Medical records were cited. Witness testimonies were presented with full attribution. The article didn't just document one incident, it painted a portrait of systematic, calculated abuse spanning years. Within an hour, it had been shared 10,000 times. Within 2 hours, it was trending on every social media platform. Within 3 hours, major news networks were picking it up, and legal experts were appearing on television calling for criminal charges. Grant Hawthorne's carefully constructed public image, the philanthropic billionaire, the business genius, the family man, shattered like glass. By the next morning, 3 major sponsors had pulled out of deals with Hawthorne Industries. The Brennan Capital merger was publicly put on hold. The board of directors issued a statement saying Grant was taking a leave of absence while they investigated the allegations. And the Dallas County District Attorney's Office announced they were opening a criminal investigation into Grant Hawthorne for domestic assault, making terroristic threats, and witness intimidation. The charges against Noah Carter were quietly dropped. Standing in Grace's living room, watching the news coverage with Caleb asleep on the couch beside him, Noah felt the weight of the past week finally begin to lift. It wasn't over. There would be trials, testimonies, legal battles that could stretch on for years. But the truth was out. The lies had been exposed. And one pregnant woman who'd been trapped and terrified now had a chance at freedom. Noah had kept his promise. To Evelyn, to Caleb, to Sarah's memory, and to himself. He'd stood up when it mattered, and sometimes that was enough to change everything. The trial of Grant Hawthorne began on a crisp October morning, 8 months after Noah Carter had stood in that alcove at the Indigo House and decided that silence was no longer an option. The courthouse steps were packed with protesters holding signs that read, "Believe survivors" and "Justice for Evelyn." News vans lined the street. Their satellite dishes pointed skyward like technological sunflowers seeking light. Noah sat in the back of Grace Patterson's car, wearing a suit she'd helped him pick out from a thrift store, and tried to calm the trembling in his hands. Caleb was at school, blissfully unaware that his father was about to testify in what had become the most watched trial in Texas. Mrs. Chen had agreed to pick him up and keep him occupied until Noah returned, whenever that might be. "You ready?" Grace asked from the driver's seat, her eyes meeting his in the rearview mirror. "No," Noah said honestly, "but I don't think I'll ever be ready. So let's just do this." The past 8 months had been a whirlwind of depositions, interviews, and legal maneuvering. Grant Hawthorne had been arrested 2 weeks after Harper's article went viral, charged with 3 counts of assault, 2 counts of making terroristic threats, and 1 count of witness tampering. He'd posted a $1 million bail within hours and had been under house arrest at his mansion ever since, an ankle monitor tracking his every movement. The preliminary hearings had been brutal. Grant's legal team, led by Douglas Kensington and a half-dozen associate attorneys who probably billed more per hour than Noah had made in a month, had attacked every piece of evidence, every witness, every procedural element of the case. They'd filed motion after motion to suppress Evelyn's recordings, claiming they violated Grant's privacy rights. They'd attempted to discredit Noah as an opportunist seeking fame and money. They'd painted Evelyn as an unstable woman with mental health issues who'd fabricated abuse allegations to gain leverage in a divorce. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings were authenticated by forensic experts. The medical records showed a pattern of injuries consistent with abuse. Witness after witness came forward, former employees, household staff, business associates who'd seen Grant's temper firsthand. Even Amanda Preston, the former employee who'd given that first television interview, provided testimony about the culture of fear Grant had created. And through it all, Evelyn Hawthorne had stood firm. She'd given her deposition with Maria Santos by her side, speaking clearly and calmly about years of abuse. She'd allowed photographs of her injuries to be entered into evidence. She'd cried on the witness stand during the preliminary hearing when they played the audio recordings of Grant threatening to kill her, but she hadn't backed down. The baby, a girl named Sarah Grace Hawthorne, named after Noah's late wife and the attorney who'd helped save her mother, had been born in June. Evelyn had given birth under protective custody, with sheriff's deputies stationed outside her hospital room. Grant had filed for custody immediately, but Judge Morrison had granted Evelyn a temporary restraining order and full custody pending the outcome of the criminal trial. Noah had met baby Sarah once when Evelyn had invited him and Caleb to her new apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in a secure building paid for by the settlement from her divorce proceedings. Caleb had been fascinated by the tiny infant, asking a million questions about why she was so small and didn't have any teeth. Evelyn had smiled through tears and told Noah that she'd named her daughter after his wife because Sarah Carter had raised a man brave enough to help strangers. "Your wife made you who you are," Evelyn had said that day, holding baby Sarah close.
And who you are saved my daughter's life. I want her to carry that legacy.
Now, walking up the courthouse steps through a gauntlet of reporters and photographers, Noah felt the weight of that legacy pressing down on him. He was about to face Grant Hawthorne in open court. He was about to testify under oath about what he'd witnessed, and Grant's lawyers were going to do everything in their power to destroy his credibility. The courtroom was packed to capacity. Judge Morrison presided with the same stern competence she'd shown throughout the proceedings. The jury, 7 women and 5 men, carefully selected through weeks of voir dire, sat attentively in their box. And at the defense table, Grant Hawthorne sat in an expensive suit, his expression carefully neutral, playing the role of wrongly accused businessman. The prosecution's case had been building for 3 days before Noah was called to testify. They'd presented the medical evidence, the recordings, the witness testimonies. Harper Quinn had testified about her investigation. Detective Marcus Wright had walked the jury through the evidence collection process. Ethan Cole had described what he'd seen at the gala, corroborating Noah's account. Now it was Noah's turn. "The state calls Noah Carter to the stand," announced Assistant District Attorney Rebecca Chen, a sharp woman in her 40s who'd built her career prosecuting domestic violence cases. Noah walked to the witness stand on legs that felt made of water. He was sworn in, placed his hand on the Bible, and promised to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. "Mr. Carter," Ada Chen began gently, "can you tell the jury what you do for a living?" "I'm a construction worker," Noah said. His voice sounded strange in the formal courtroom setting, too rough, too working class. "I was working as a janitor at the Indigo House on the night in question, but I've since taken other employment. And on the night of February 11th of this year, you were working at a charity gala at the Indigo House. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "Can you describe what you witnessed that night?" Noah took a breath and began to speak. He told the story he'd told so many times now, in videos, in depositions, in interviews, but somehow it felt fresh and immediate here, with 12 strangers listening to judge whether he was telling the truth. He described seeing Grant grab Evelyn's arm, hearing him berate her, watching him strike her face. He described the sound of the slap, the red mark on her cheek, her hand protectively cradling her pregnant belly. "And what did you do when you saw this?" Ada Chen asked. "I intervened. I asked him to stop. I told him she was pregnant." "What was Mr. Hawthorne's reaction?" "He threatened me. He said no one would believe a janitor over him. He said he'd destroy my life if I said anything." "And did you believe him?" "Yes, ma'am. I still do." Ada Chen walked Noah through the rest of that night, through his decision to make the video, through the consequences he'd faced. She established that Noah had nothing to gain financially from coming forward, that he'd lost 2 jobs and faced criminal charges himself as a result of speaking up. "Mr. Carter, why did you come forward? Why risk everything?" Noah glanced at the jury, 12 faces looking back at him with varying expressions of interest, skepticism, sympathy. "Because I have a son, and I'm trying to teach him to be a good man. How could I tell him to stand up for what's right if I didn't do it myself?" "No further questions, Your Honor." Then came the cross-examination. Douglas Kensington approached the witness stand with the confidence of a man who'd demolished countless witnesses before. "Mr. Carter, you say you're trying to teach your son to be a good man, but isn't it true that you've been fired from multiple jobs for poor performance?" "I was fired from the Indigo House after Mr. Hawthorne filed a complaint about me. My other job let me go after his people pressured my employer. I wasn't fired for performance issues." "You're currently working construction, making, what is it, $18 an hour?" "That's correct." "And before this incident, you were working 3 jobs to make ends meet. Isn't that right?" "Yes, sir." Kensington smiled slightly. "So you were struggling financially, desperate even, and then you saw an opportunity, a wealthy man in a vulnerable position, a chance to manufacture a scandal and perhaps profit from it." "No, sir. That's not what happened." "Isn't it true that you initially uploaded your video as unlisted and only made it public after speaking with journalist Harper Quinn?" "Yes, but... And isn't it true that Ms. Quinn has made her career by attacking successful individuals? That she was fired from a major newspaper for ethical violations?" Objection! Ada Chen was on her feet. Counsel is testifying rather than questioning. Sustained, Judge Morrison said. Mr. Kensington, ask questions. Don't make speeches. Kensington nodded smoothly. Mr. Carter, how much money have you made from interviews and media appearances related to this case? Nothing. I haven't accepted any money for interviews. But you've been offered money, haven't you? Some outlets offered payment. I declined. How noble. And yet you're being represented by Grace Patterson, a high-priced attorney, free of charge. You're living rent-free in an apartment provided by victim advocacy groups. You've received donations through a GoFundMe campaign that's raised over $50,000. You've profited quite handsomely from your accusations, haven't you? Noah felt his face flush. The GoFundMe was set up by strangers who wanted to help after I lost my jobs. I didn't ask for it. And the apartment is temporary housing provided by advocates who have a vested interest in seeing my client convicted? Yes. Mr. Carter, isn't it possible that what you saw that night was simply a marital dispute? A husband and wife arguing, as married couples sometimes do? He hit her. Are you certain of that? You were 20 feet away, the lighting was dim, you'd been working all evening. Isn't it possible you misinterpreted what you saw? No, sir. I know what I saw. He hit her across the face hard enough that the sound echoed. There's no misinterpreting that. Kensington changed tactics. You mentioned your late wife, Sarah, in your video. She died of cancer 2 years ago. Is that correct? Noah's jaw tightened. Yes. That must have been very difficult for you. Traumatic, even. Have you sought counseling for your grief? I've attended some support groups. But no professional therapy? No treatment for what might be post-traumatic stress or depression? Objection, Ada Chen said. Relevance? Your Honor, I'm establishing that Mr. Carter may have been in an emotional state that affected his perception and judgment. I'll allow it, but tread carefully, Mr. Kensington. Kensington turned back to Noah. Mr. Carter, is it possible that seeing Mr. and Mrs. Hawthorne argue triggered something in you? Perhaps made you see something that wasn't really there? Perhaps made you want to play the hero because you couldn't save your own wife? The words hit Noah like a physical blow. He heard gasps from the gallery. Ada Chen was objecting loudly. Judge Morrison was calling for order. But all Noah could hear was Kensington's implication that his memories of Sarah, his grief, his trauma, had somehow made him fabricate everything. No, Noah said quietly, but his voice carried through the courtroom. What I saw was real. Grant Hawthorne hit his pregnant wife. He threatened her. He hurt her. And no amount of your twisting my words or attacking my character is going to change those facts. Kensington stared at him for a long moment, then smiled coldly. No further questions. Noah was excused from the stand. He walked back to his seat in the gallery on shaking legs, feeling like he'd just survived a battle. Harper Quinn, sitting 2 rows behind, gave him an encouraging nod. Ethan squeezed his shoulder as he passed. The trial continued for another week. Evelyn took the stand and gave devastating testimony about years of abuse, about living in fear, about the night of the gala when Grant had hit her in front of witnesses, and she'd thought for the first time that maybe, just maybe, someone would finally help her. She cried when they played the audio recordings. She remained composed when Kensington tried to paint her as an unstable woman who'd married for money and then fabricated abuse to get more in a divorce. Mrs. Hawthorne, Kensington had said during cross-examination, you're asking this jury to believe that you stayed with a man who beat you for over 3 years, that you continued to appear at public events with him, to smile for cameras, to play the happy wife. Why didn't you just leave? Evelyn had looked at him with something close to pity. Because I was terrified. Because he told me he'd take my child. Because I had no money of my own, no career, no way to support myself. Because every time I thought about leaving, he'd sense it and become apologetic and loving, promising to change. Because the man I married still appeared sometimes, and I wanted to believe that man was real. And because Mr. Kensington, unless you've lived in fear of someone who's supposed to love you, unless you've been told over and over that you're worthless and crazy and no one will believe you, you can't possibly understand why leaving isn't as simple as walking out a door. The courtroom had erupted in applause. Judge Morrison had gavelled for order but hadn't looked displeased. Grant Hawthorne's defense relied heavily on character witnesses. business partners who testified to his professional conduct, employees who claimed he was demanding but fair, a psychiatrist who suggested Evelyn might be suffering from borderline personality disorder and fabricating abuse. But none of it could overcome the recordings, the medical evidence, the testimonies of people who'd seen Grant's cruelty firsthand. On the 8th day of trial, both sides rested. Closing arguments took most of the 9th day. Ada Chen spoke passionately about patterns of abuse, about power dynamics, about the courage it took for victims to come forward. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she said, "Grant Hawthorne wants you to believe that he's the victim here, that a hardworking janitor and his client's own wife have conspired to destroy him out of greed or malice or mental instability. But the evidence tells a different story. The evidence shows a man who used his wealth and power to terrorize the woman he promised to love and protect. The evidence shows a man who hit his pregnant wife and thought he'd get away with it because he always had before. And the evidence shows that he would have gotten away with it again, if not for one person, Noah Carter, who decided that doing the right thing mattered more than protecting himself. Don't let Grant Hawthorne's money and lawyers and carefully constructed image blind you to the truth. Find him guilty. Hold him accountable. Show victims everywhere that it doesn't matter how rich or powerful your abuser is, justice can still prevail." Kensington's closing argument painted Grant as a flawed but innocent man caught in a web of lies by people seeking to profit from his downfall. But even he seemed to know it was a losing battle. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, Noah was sitting in the gallery holding Caleb's hand. Grace had pulled him out of school for the verdict, explaining that this was history, that Caleb should see justice happen in real time. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Morrison asked. The foreman, a middle-aged black woman who'd been an elementary school teacher, stood. "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of assault causing bodily injury, how do you find?" "Guilty." The word sent a shockwave through the courtroom. Grant's face went pale. Evelyn, sitting in the front row with Maria beside her, began to cry. "On the charge of making terroristic threats, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the charge of witness tampering, how do you find?" "Guilty." 3 counts, all guilty. Grant Hawthorne, billionaire CEO, philanthropist, pillar of Dallas society, was a convicted felon. Judge Morrison set sentencing for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, Grant's bail was revoked. He was handcuffed in the courtroom and led away, his expensive suit and carefully styled hair suddenly meaningless. As he passed Noah's row, their eyes met for a brief moment. Grant's expression was pure hatred, but Noah wasn't afraid anymore. The monster had been named, exposed, and defeated. Outside the courthouse, reporters mobbed Noah and Evelyn. Harper stood beside them, helping field questions. "Mr. Carter, how do you feel about the verdict?" Noah looked at Caleb, who was watching him with those serious brown eyes, taking in every moment. "I feel like justice was served, and I feel grateful to everyone who believed the truth and fought for it." "Mrs. Hawthorne, what's next for you?" Evelyn, holding baby Sarah close, smiled through tears. "Healing, building a life where my daughter will never know fear, and someday teaching her about the man who stood up when no one else would." 2 weeks later, Grant Hawthorne was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. With good behavior, he'd serve 6. It wasn't life. It wasn't the decade some people felt he deserved, but it was accountability. It was consequence. It was a message that wealth couldn't buy immunity from justice. The civil suits followed. Evelyn was awarded full custody of Sarah and a significant portion of the marital assets. She donated a substantial amount to domestic violence charities and used the rest to establish herself independently. Noah's life slowly returned to something resembling normal. The GoFundMe money allowed him to pay off debts and build a small savings cushion. He took a job with a construction company that had followed the trial and specifically sought him out, offering not just fair wages but health insurance and respect. Caleb went back to being a regular 7-year-old, though he sometimes told his friends that his dad was a hero. Noah always corrected him gently. "I'm just your dad, buddy. Heroes are what we call people who do what everyone should do, help when someone needs help." 6 months after the trial, on a warm April morning, Noah received a call from Evelyn. "I wanted you to be the first to know," she said, her voice bright with excitement. We're opening it next month. The building, the foundation, everything. And Noah, we couldn't have done it without you. Done what? Noah asked, though he had a feeling he knew. Come see for yourself, tomorrow at 10. Bring Caleb. The next morning, Noah drove to East Dallas, to a neighborhood that had been rough but was slowly revitalizing. He pulled up in front of a newly renovated building, its brick facade painted a warm cream color, its windows gleaming in the sunlight. A sign covered with a tarp hung above the entrance. Evelyn stood on the steps with Maria, baby Sarah in a carrier on her chest. Harper was there too, along with Ethan, Grace, Detective Wright, and dozens of other people Noah recognized from the trial and the advocacy work that had followed. Welcome, Evelyn said, gesturing to the building, to the Beacon Foundation. She pulled a cord and the tarp fell away, revealing the full sign. The Beacon Foundation, a light in the darkness, in honor of Noah Carter and Sarah Carter. Noah felt tears prick his eyes. Evelyn, I can't. This is too much. It's not enough, she said firmly. This building will provide temporary housing for domestic violence survivors. We'll have legal services, counseling, job training, childcare. Everything someone needs to rebuild their life after leaving an abusive situation. And it exists because you refuse to stay silent. Because you showed me that one person speaking up can change everything. She gestured to the crowd. Everyone here has been touched by domestic violence in some way. As survivors, as advocates, as people who care about making the world safer. And we're all here to celebrate not just this building, but what it represents. The power of courage, of truth, of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The crowd applauded. Caleb tugged Noah's hand. Dad, they named it after you and Mom? Yeah, buddy, they did. Because you're a hero? Noah crouched down to his son's level, looking into those serious brown eyes. Because sometimes when you see someone who needs help, you help them, that's all. It's not about being special or brave. It's just about being human. But you were brave, Dad. You stood up to a bad man even though you were scared. Noah pulled his son into a hug. You're right. I was scared. But you know what? Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you're terrified. And that's a lesson I learned from your mom. They toured the building together. The private rooms where survivors could stay while getting on their feet. The playroom where their children could be safe and cared for. The legal aid office, where attorneys would provide free services. The counseling center where trained therapists would help people process trauma and rebuild their sense of self. In the main common area, there was a wall dedicated to stories. Survivors who'd passed through the foundation would have the option to share their experiences anonymously, creating a testament to resilience and recovery. The first story was already posted, handwritten on simple paper. 1 year ago, my husband hit me for the first time. 6 months ago, he did it again while I was pregnant. And then a stranger, a janitor working at a party we attended, did something no one had ever done. He spoke up. He said my husband's actions were wrong. That moment of validation, of someone seeing me and acknowledging my pain, gave me the courage to leave. Today, I'm free. My daughter will grow up knowing that abuse is never acceptable, that help is available, and that sometimes heroes work night shifts and mop floors. Thank you, Noah Carter, for seeing me when I'd become invisible even to myself. E.H. Noah read it through tears. Behind him, Caleb was holding baby Sarah's tiny hand and telling her about dinosaurs, completely unaware that his father had just been reminded why all the pain and fear and struggle had been worth it. The official opening ceremony was held a week later. The mayor attended. Local news covered it extensively. Dozens of survivors came to see the space, many of them crying, all of them hopeful. Harper Quinn published a follow-up article titled The Beacon Foundation, How One Man's Courage Created a Movement. It detailed not just the foundation itself, but the dozens of similar organizations that had sprung up across the country in the wake of the Hawthorne trial, all inspired by Noah's simple act of intervention. Ethan Cole, who'd stood beside Noah from the beginning, started a nonprofit training service workers, janitors, waitstaff, delivery drivers, anyone who might witness abuse, on how to safely intervene and report. He called it the Stand Up Initiative, and within a year it was being implemented in hotels and event venues across 3 states. Grace Patterson expanded her pro bono domestic violence practice, taking on twice as many clients and training other attorneys to do the same. She won a humanitarian award that she dedicated to Noah, saying, "He showed us that protecting victims isn't just a job for lawyers and police. It's everyone's responsibility." As for Noah, he went back to being ordinary. He worked his construction job, picked up Caleb from school, made dinner, helped with homework, and tucked his son into bed every night. He dated occasionally, but wasn't in a hurry to replace what he'd had with Sarah. He volunteered at the Beacon Foundation on weekends, helping with maintenance and repairs, finding satisfaction in keeping the building safe and functional for the people who needed it. One Saturday afternoon, about a year after the foundation opened, Noah was repairing a leaky faucet in one of the residential units when a young woman approached him hesitantly. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Are you Noah Carter?" Noah recognized that tone, the mix of hope and fear, the uncertainty of someone still learning to trust. "I am. I wanted to thank you. Not for me specifically, though this place has been a lifeline, but for my sister. She saw your video when it first went viral. She was in a bad situation with her boyfriend, had been for 2 years. She showed me the video and said, 'If a stranger can be that brave, maybe I can be too.' She left him that week. She's safe now, building a new life, and it started with your video, with you showing her that someone cared enough to help." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "You probably don't remember everyone you've helped, but we remember you, all of us. You gave us permission to believe we deserved better." Noah didn't know what to say. He'd given 100 interviews, heard 1,000 thank yous, but somehow this one, quiet and personal and unexpected, hit differently. "I'm glad your sister is safe," he said finally. "That's what matters." The woman nodded and walked away. Noah returned to the faucet, but his hands were shaking too much to work. He sat down on the bathroom floor, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had spiraled out from one decision on one night. He'd stood up when it mattered, and that simple act had created ripples that touched lives he'd never meet, in places he'd never go, in ways he could never fully measure. That evening, back at his apartment, Caleb was working on a school project about heroes. He'd chosen to write about his father despite Noah's protests. "But Dad, you are a hero," Caleb insisted, reading from his draft. "Heroes don't have superpowers. They just do what's right even when it's hard. You taught me that." Noah looked at the drawing Caleb had made to accompany the report. The same stick figure with a cape from a year ago, but more detailed now. The dad figure was standing between a smaller figure labeled Lady and a larger figure labeled Bad Guy. At the top, in Caleb's improving handwriting, "My dad is still my hero." "You know what the best part of being your hero is?" Noah asked, pulling his son into a hug. "What?" "Getting to be your dad. That's the real superpower." 2 years after the trial, Noah was invited to speak at a domestic violence awareness conference in Washington, D.C. He almost declined. Public speaking terrified him, and he still didn't think of himself as anyone special. But Grace convinced him. "People need to hear from you," she said. "Not the media version of you, but the real you. The guy who was scared and did it anyway. The single dad working 3 jobs who still found the courage to help someone. That's the story that matters." So Noah flew to D.C., leaving Caleb with Mrs. Chen, and stood on a stage in front of 500 advocates, survivors, and policymakers. He told his story simply and honestly, without embellishment or false modesty. "I'm not special," he concluded. "I'm just a guy who saw something wrong and couldn't look away. And I want everyone in this room to know, you don't have to be special to make a difference. You don't have to have money or power or influence. You just have to be willing to speak up when someone needs help. That's it. That's the whole secret. And if I can do it, a janitor from Dallas with a 7th grade education and a kid to feed, then anyone can do it. So please, I'm asking you, be that person. Be the one who speaks up. Be the one who intervenes. Be the one who stands between an abuser and their victim and says, 'No more.' Because I promise you, it will change lives, maybe even save them." The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, at least 50 people approached him with their own stories of survival, of intervention, of courage found in the darkest moments. One elderly woman gripped his hand and said, "My granddaughter was killed by her husband 5 years ago. None of us knew he was hurting her. She hid it so well. If just one person had spoken up, if someone had seen and said something, maybe she'd still be alive. Thank you for being the person who spoke up. Thank you for showing people it's possible. Noah cried on the flight home, processing the weight of all those stories, all those lives touched by violence, all those people looking to him as proof that intervention mattered. He came home to find Caleb waiting up past bedtime, bouncing with excitement. Dad, Dad! Mrs. Chen let me stay up because I have big news. I won the essay contest at school, the one about heroes, and tomorrow I get to read my essay about you to the whole school. Noah scooped up his son, suddenly overwhelmed by gratitude for this small person who thought his father hung the moon, who was learning from his example, who would grow up believing that ordinary people could do extraordinary things. I'm so proud of you, buddy. I'm proud of you too, Dad. You're the best hero ever. 3 years after the trial, Noah attended a ceremony at the Beacon Foundation. They were expanding, adding a second building, increasing their capacity to serve more survivors, launching new programs. Evelyn, now remarried to a kind physician and pregnant with her second child, presided over the ribbon cutting with baby Sarah, now a talkative 3-year-old, by her side. This foundation has served over 400 people in 3 years, Evelyn told the assembled crowd. 400 survivors who found safety, resources, and hope. 400 families who escaped violence. And it all started because one person refused to look away. Noah, would you come up here? Reluctantly, Noah joined her on the stage. Evelyn held up a plaque. This is a permanent installation that will hang in our lobby, she said. I want everyone who walks through these doors to know how this place came to be. Noah, would you read it? Noah took the plaque, his voice catching as he read aloud. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're afraid. The Beacon Foundation exists because Noah Carter, a working father and everyday citizen, saw injustice and refused to be silent. His actions remind us that every person has the power to stand against violence, to protect the vulnerable, and to change lives. May all who enter here find the same courage to speak, to act, and to heal. The applause was thunderous, but Noah barely heard it. He was looking out at the crowd, at Evelyn holding her daughter, at Harper and Ethan and Grace and Detective Wright, at the dozens of survivors who'd passed through the foundation's doors, at Caleb sitting in the front row with Mrs. Chen, beaming with pride. This was his legacy. Not fame or fortune or recognition, but lives changed, people saved, a small corner of the world made safer because he'd made one difficult choice on one terrifying night. That night, tucking Caleb into bed, Noah noticed a new drawing on the wall. The stick figures were gone, replaced by a more sophisticated sketch that showed a man and a boy standing together in front of a large building with Beacon written above the door. I'm getting better at drawing, Caleb said proudly. That's us, Dad. At the foundation, where you help people. Where we help people, Noah corrected. You volunteer there too, remember? You're part of this. Do you think Mom would be proud of us? Noah thought about Sarah, about the life they'd built together, about the values they'd tried to instill in their son. Yeah, buddy, I think she'd be really proud of both of us. Dad? Caleb's voice was sleepy now, drifting toward dreams. When I grow up, I want to help people like you do. I want to be brave like you. You already are brave, Noah whispered, kissing his son's forehead. Every day you choose kindness, you're brave. Every time you stand up for what's right, you're brave. You're already the hero you want to be. As Noah turned off the light and closed the door, he realized something profound. He'd spent years trying to be the hero Caleb believed he was, trying to live up to that crayon drawing on the refrigerator. But the real gift wasn't that Noah had been brave. It was that his courage had given Caleb permission to be brave too. The legacy wasn't the foundation or the trial or the media coverage. It was the next generation learning that ordinary people could do extraordinary things. It was children growing up believing that their voices mattered, that they had the power to change the world, that heroism wasn't reserved for the wealthy or powerful, but available to anyone willing to stand up when it mattered. 5 years after that night at the Indigo House, Noah Carter was exactly where he'd always been. An ordinary man living an ordinary life, working hard, raising his son, trying to be good. He still worked construction. He still struggled with bills sometimes. He still woke up missing Sarah on hard mornings. But when he drove past the Beacon Foundation, when he saw survivors walking through those doors toward safety and healing, when he received letters from people whose lives had been changed by his actions. In those moments, he felt Sarah's presence, felt her approval, felt the rightness of the choice he'd made. Because sometimes it takes just one person, one moment, one act of defiance to turn darkness into light. Sometimes it takes a janitor with everything to lose and nothing to gain, except the knowledge that he did what was right. Sometimes it takes a single father teaching his son what courage really means. And sometimes that's enough to change everything. Noah Carter had stood up when no one else would. He'd spoken truth when silence was safer. He'd risked everything to help a stranger. And in doing so, he'd become exactly what his son always believed he was. A hero, not because he was extraordinary, but because he'd proven that ordinary people, in ordinary moments, could choose to be extraordinary. The light that never fades isn't found in wealth or power or fame. It's found in the courage of everyday people who refuse to look away from injustice, who choose compassion over comfort, who stand up even when standing up might cost them everything. That light was burning bright in Dallas, Texas, in a foundation named Beacon, in the lives of hundreds of survivors, in the heart of a 12-year-old boy who'd learned from his father that heroism was a choice anyone could make. And it would keep burning long after Noah Carter's name faded from headlines, long after the trial became history, because truth, once spoken, creates ripples that never truly end. One janitor, one moment of courage, one refusal to stay silent. And the world, in some small but significant way, became a little bit better, a little bit safer, a little bit more just. That was enough. That would always be enough. And Noah Carter, ordinary man and extraordinary father, understood that now. He had kept his promise to Sarah, to Caleb, to Evelyn, and to himself. He had been the hero his son believed he was. And that, more than anything else, was worth every moment of fear, every sacrifice, every difficult choice. Because love, in its truest form, is courage. And courage, at its core, is simply love in action.